I will ask counsel to please state on the record that you have no objection to me administering a binding oath to this witness remotely.
No objection.
No objection.
Thank you. Would you like for me to go and swear in?
Yes, please.
Doctor, if you will please raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear or affirm the testimony you're going to give in this cause to be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, I do.
Thank you.
All right, excellent. Well, good morning, Dr. Cantor. My name is Matt Kahn. I represent Kendall Thomas's family. We've met once before at the IME.
Yes.
I like to just kind of jump straight into it. So I'm just going to get into it. Do you admit that Isabella Field struck Kendall Thomas with her car?
Whoa, I wasn't expecting that question. I think I don't know the person's name, and I apologize for that. I have no doubt, based on my review of the records, that she was struck by an automobile. I'm remiss in not knowing the name of the individual who hit her with the car.
Okay, fair. Do you admit that Kendall Thomas was in the crosswalk at the time of the collision?
I have no doubt, based on the consistency of the records that I reviewed, that there's any discrepancy as to what occurred on the date of the accident. I obviously wasn't there, so that's what I'm getting at.
I noticed that the video of the collision was in your materials list. Did you watch the video before creating your report?
I do not recall seeing a video of the car striking Kendall.
Okay. Do you admit that the collision caused Kendall Thomas's injuries?
Yes, she was a healthy young woman with a significant change in her life, based on a collision for which I have no doubt, based on my review of the records. And my apologies, which one is the video that you're referring to?
The video, just there's a field house video and then a bus video. I was referring to the field house video. That's fine, though. We can move on.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
Do you admit that Kendall Thomas suffered a catastrophic brain injury?
Yes,
Do you admit that Kendall Thomas will likely require around-the-clock care for the rest of her life?
absolutely.
Do you admit that Kendall Thomas will likely require assistance with her activities of daily living for the rest of her life?
Absolutely.
Do you admit that it is unlikely that Kendall Thomas will ever gain mobility in her lifetime?
Yes.
Do you admit that it is unlikely that Kendall Thomas will ever feed fully by mouth for the rest of her lifetime?
Yes.
And then do you admit that you cannot say with certainty when Kendall Thomas's life will end?
With certainty, correct.
Were you aware that the defendant driver has denied any responsibility for causing Kendall's injuries?
I'm not aware of anything involving what I would use the trite word causation, that piece of it. I don't even pay attention to that per se. My role is to assess her current and future care needs in the role of a life care planner.
Okay, fair enough. All right. I'm gonna share my screen. Can you see the document that's been marked as plaintiff's exhibit 678?
Yes.
And have you seen this deposition notice before?
I have to say I have not seen that. Whether there or not there was a glitch in my office where it didn't get to me, I didn't see it. And my apologies for the time issue. I don't know why it happened. I'm so sorry.
No worries. But have you at least seen this list of documents that you're requested to bring to the deposition?
My recollection is no. Typically how it works in my practice is our administrative coordinator kind of says, we need blah, 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 on a kind of working list that we keep online. And all I knew to get together was something on the next page. If you could, I forgot what it was, but it wasn't those things. Oh, like my presentations and my case file to make sure it was complete so we could send a link, I think. And then just this morning, I'm so sorry, I realized that emails had not been sent. I learned that from an email I received late last night from my assistant. I don't like to call her that because she's more than our administrator. And then I wrote to Ms. Diddle this morning because I didn't have any emails like outside of her and I just sent them. There were maybe 4 emails.
I sent them to you, Matt.
And if I'm missing anything, I'm happy to get it together.
Sure. Well, let's just briefly go through these bullet points and just see.
Can you make it a little bigger?
Yeah, of course.
Okay.
Is that better for you?
Yes, thank you so much.
Yeah. So have you produced or have access to right now your complete file?
Yes.
And were there any prior drafts of the life care plan before the one that was produced to us that's dated May 3rd, 2023?
It would just be a Word document that's wordsmithed over and over. I build upon it. So nothing that, to my recollection, I would have in hand as a separate file.
Did you provide the report or the life care plan in Word format to the defense lawyers in this case?
I don't believe so. To my recollection, I just sent the PDF. I don't think I've
Matt,
done.
we didn't receive any drafts.
All right. The materials relied upon. Do you have any publications or studies or materials that you relied on in forming your life care plan?
If it's not footnoted, then the answer is no. If there's something, in my experience, training, practice, and all that, that's in my think tank up here, that I'm comfortable, with, I could, come up with it after, but there's nothing I had to open to read beyond what I've already referenced in the report.
Okay. And you've produced an invoice. There was a single invoice. Are there any additional invoices?
Again, my apologies. I would have no idea about that part of the way the practice would, the invoice. I don't even know how the system works. So whatever you have is what was sent out.
Okay,
And
fair
I
enough.
can call and see if there's something else, but
That's all we've got.
Well, let me ask you this, Doctor. Are there any materials on the list that you were instructed not to bring or to provide?
not to my recollection.
Will you please, Dr. Kanner, identify every subject about which you consider yourself qualified to testify as an expert?
In general or pertaining to this case?
In general.
Certainly. I have a master's degree in public health with a focus in epidemiology, and would feel comfortable and have testified before in that scope, which would be the interpretation and synthesis of evidence-based literature, analyzing the quality of literature, and so on in more broad strokes. I am a board certified pediatrician. So within the scope of pediatrics, anything that the American Board of Pediatrics has on the content specification for pediatrics, I would consider myself qualified to testify on any of that. I am also board certified in child abuse pediatrics, and anything within the content specifications of that field, I would feel comfortable, testifying as a qualified expert. Might have to brush up on some of the things in general pediatrics, but for the most part, then I am comfortable to testify as an expert in the field of life care planning, specifically as being a physician in life care planning. I am comfortable to testify in the field of vocational rehabilitation, as I'm a certified vocational rehabilitation counselor.
Thank you. Can you see plaintiff's exhibit 671?
Yes, I can.
And this is a 5-page document. Is this your most current CV?
As far as yes, as far as I know.
Okay. If you need me to pull it back up to reference, let me know.
Pull it up for literally 1 second, because I just got a small change in my position. I've been at the same job 21 years or something, but last week I have a title change at the same job that I've been at from 2002, and it's just a tweak. I just kind of went up a level in administration as the director of our child fatality review team, our child advocacy center, and the medical program. So I now supervise social workers and, more nurses and people. If day to day, it just means it doesn't really functionally mean much.
Okay. And just for clarity, you're referring to the listing with Westchester Institute for Human Development pediatrician?
Correct.
Okay.
That position encompasses 3 different organizations per se: the medical school, the hospital, and then a not-for-profit that called the Westchester Institute for Human Development, that encompasses the care of children and adults with disabilities for primary care and specialty care, and what we call, quote, children with vulnerabilities, meaning children with exposure to potential abuse or neglect.
Okay. Well, can you just sort of, and I guess the reason it's not reflected is because it's so recent and you just haven't had the opportunity to.
Oh, it happened like last week.
Okay.
To my surprise, all of a sudden, okay, that was.
Well, congratulations on the new.
I don't play this, but it is not a congratulations. It is not something I necessarily wanted to happen. Somebody left. They needed another boss. So.
Well, can you just sort of broadly, generally explain your various roles with, I guess, that job listing? It sounds like there are multiple entities, but if you could just explain your roles with that.
Sure.
listing.
So for 2/3 of my work week, on average, some weeks are more, some are less, I am a full professor of pediatrics and of disability and health through New York Medical College, which is a medical school and public health school in Valhalla, New York. I am responsible for teaching our residents, fellows, physicians in all different specialties about my specialty field, which is the evaluation of children with physical concerns, including traumatic brain injury, as you know, that can happen from accidents with concerns for neglect or abuse, sexual abuse, spinal cord injury, skin injury, burns, all that. Then I am responsible for the overall clinical evaluation as it pertains to that field in our intensive care unit, the emergency department, the hospital floors. I either conduct and or directly supervise that care and have done so for over 20 years. That hospital, Westchester Medical Centers, Children's Hospital is called the Maria Ferrari Children's Hospital, and it's the regional trauma center in the Hudson Valley of New York, which is from north of the Bronx to, I don't know if you know the Bronx.
I'm actually from Staten Island.
Okay, you know the Bronx. So it's north of the Bronx up to Albany, and then portions of New Jersey and Pennsylvania. So it's a huge trauma center in New York. Then, so that's category 2. And within category 2, I do all kinds of administrative program development, prevention programs that have gone both, statewide. And then in the 3rd category, I am director of the outpatient programs in, I don't know, six counties in New York that do evaluations for children, teens, and adults with disabilities, actually, where there's concerns for sexual abuse or sexual assault. So that is on average 1/3 of my, I would say, quote, clock hours. I'm going to stay just that configuration I talked about. When it's a proper time, I can flip around and go to the other side of my room because my colleague is there. But actually, for the time being, I'm fine. So there might be a time I need to. Okay.
So it sounds like 2/3 of your work week is doing one function and then 1/3 is the other. What portion of your work week is devoted to life care planning?
It's completely variable. I roundabout say it's about 1/3 of my time. Quite candidly, I work 7 days a week and have done so for at least the previous 3 years.
So I guess roughly the breakdown between we'll call it the hospital work, which will encompass all 3 of the roles that you just identified, and life care planning would be 2/3 hospital roles, 1/3 life care planning.
Yes, that's to the best of my ability, breaking it down. That seems to be the case. With the qualification that I am on call for the hospital 7 days a week, 365 days a year for 21 years, including the times I've given birth to 2 sets of twins. So although they would respect the fact that I'm in a deposition, it's that kind of job. We do not have scheduled office hours because people don't make appointments to do the things that lead to my patients coming in. So it's very fluid.
How long have you been a life care planner?
Oh, goodness. I became a life care planner, I believe, about 7 years ago. So no, yeah. And I began working a bit before that as a consultant, and then became certified on whatever dates on my CV.
Okay. So I noticed that you graduated medical school in 1997, but the first job listing begins at 2002. What did you do in that time period?
I completed a residency and a fellowship. I have 5 years of post-residency training in pediatrics and the field of forensic pediatrics. 3 years of which were at Montefiore Medical Center, again in the Bronx, as we talked about. And that is the field of pediatrics and all the training that goes into that. And after that, I completed a 2-year fellowship. It's now actually a 3-year fellowship through the American Board of Pediatrics in this field, child abuse pediatrics or forensic pediatrics, which is the evaluation, as I said before, of and it could be 100-page document you can probably find online, which is the scope of our field and expertise. And that was 2 years of additional training, which I finished in 2002, June 30th, started my job the next day, haven't looked back, one job, and then added on the life care planning 7 years ago.
Okay. Have you ever presented at any seminars on life care planning?
To the best of my recollection, no, except one time in 2016, I was giving a lecture at a conference for victims of crime and it might have been crime and accident. I don't know. It was unbeknownst to me, a plaintiff organization that wanted to learn about child abuse, actually. And within that, I said, oh, you know, I've started to do this new element in my career, and I did present a bit about what life care planning was about and all that. I've had what I consider, I don't know what you'd call it, a meet and greets, where if you, and you're welcome to do this, if you reached out and said, can you just tell me a little bit about life care planning and chat a little bit. I have done several of those for different clients that I've worked with, and some, I would say, non-academic kind of presentations in that regard. But I've not presented at any conferences, anything I would consider CV worthy at this point.
Fair. Okay. How many employees does your life care planning business have?
Okay, that's a good question. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4 employees. We have my business partner, co-owner, who were not employees. We have, it could be 10, 12, 15 independent contractors as well. And they're all over the country.
Okay. Is your business partner, is that your husband?
Well, yeah.
Okay. And then how, of the 4 employees, 1 partner, and 12 to 15 independent contractors, how many of those individuals are creating life plans and testifying about it?
That's a good question. 1, 2, 3. I would say 5 of us. There are several. We just became, again, that was last week, the 4th, I believe, certified body to be able to train life care planners. The place that I went to do my training, which was Capital University Law School, put their program on pause. So I was really looking for a way to train life care planners myself with a curriculum, and it just got approved. So we're in the midst of training some of the other physicians to actually produce them. At this time, they would be considered medical timeline, record review, all kinds of background research. I might have forgotten one other employee who is my gap year student, which is I take on students that have graduated from college and are applying to medical school and want experience in the field and do some I do mentoring and this and that, but they also work with the company. and when I say the company, I was originally a contractor for a company that had been around for 30 years called Jane Matz and Associates. And I did work under that company. And then in late 2019, I purchased that, the special assets of that company. I might not be using the right word. I didn't purchase the buildings or the accounts receivable. Essentially, I bought the phone number. For a lot of money, but that's quote confidential. And then I then changed the name to reflect the fact that it was no longer the prior owner's umbrella. Hence, now we're called Empirical Planners.
And the entity that operates Empirical Planners is Empirical Planners LLC.
It's, I believe, LLC-P, which is something in New York that makes us a partnership rather than an LLC. But there's, I above my head, LLCP, don't know what it means.
Sure. Okay. How many times have you been retained as a life care planner by an insurance company or a law firm representing an individual or company that injured someone?
Well, I have to splice your question a little bit. Perhaps the forensic person in me, a bit compounded. I do not know if somebody injured somebody, and I'm completely not in that part of it. So I would just like to reframe my answer that retained on behalf of insurance company or law firm or public agency, as I do work for the federal government, to evaluate situations in the context of litigation whereby there are allegations of potential injury, malpractice, whatever the case may be, in order to provide either consultation or pretty rarely a report, frankly, and almost never testimony regarding those situations.
And so I guess then let's break it down. So how many times have you been retained as a life care planner by an insurance company?
I would have actually, to tell you the truth, I could use the word never, because an insurance company doesn't engage the company. So it either will come from the federal government or other government agencies like the city of New York or with that kind of stuff, a law firm, or the other category would be, you know, in an international case, I was appointed by the court to do the evaluation. And there's another category that just slipped out of my mind, that would essentially retain risk management. So a new part of what I've been actually trying to do a bit more is when there's litigation in the context typically of a med mal allegation, is what I feel is best for the patient, the physician overall, is to come in early and kind of see what's going on. So in those regards, I would consider myself, quote, retained by all to try to figure out what might be best to avoid the process of litigation.
Okay. So I guess specifically in the med mal cases, are you paid by the hospitals or paid by the law firm pursuing the claim on behalf of the injured party?
The hospitals, typically, to the best of my knowledge, because again, I don't manage that part of the company.
Sure. When you take on a case, do you keep track of whether you are being retained by the plaintiff in litigation or the defendant?
I can tell you, do I keep track? Obviously in my head, I know what I'm doing. I can just splice it out there for you. the company I purchased was doing 90% evaluations on behalf of defense, risk management, government organizations. That shift has not changed much since I purchased the company. Of those evaluations, pretty much about half of them, the opinions or feedback is quote favorable to the plaintiff. And I formed what I consider very respectful relationships with our clients, that I'm a straight shooter. If Ms. Diddle called me and asked me, could you say something? I guess I'm doing my generation here with the telephone. I don't do that. So more than half the time, frankly, I'm educating an attorney about what the life care plan is, maybe making some suggestions to ask some questions in a deposition, but not getting involved further. And that's really the area of growth I'm working on the company development with.
Okay.
So I would say, yeah, does that answer the question?
Sure. So I just to sort of clarify, so 90% of the work that your company does is for the defense and 10% is for the plaintiff.
So roundabout, yes.
Okay. All right. Can you see plaintiff's exhibit 673?
Yes. I feel bad for you if you have 673 exhibits.
So does this appear to be a complete list of your deposition and trial testimony for the last 4 years?
Yeah, just scroll down because I testified this week. And that's not on there.
In a trial or deposition?
In a trial. I'm sorry.
It's okay. These are living documents. So, what is the trial that you testified in?
It was for the a man. Oh gosh, if you ask me his name, I honestly don't remember. It was in New York, in Brooklyn, and involved a man with allegations of something falling on him in 2016, and he sued various parties, and I testified on behalf of defense in that case.
Okay. So I was going to go through each of these, but it may just be easier to ask as to the 10 depositions listed. Were you retained by the defense in all of them?
And I just want to clarify something, just so I'm totally being clear.
Sure.
This doesn't include cases that I testify, civil, family, criminal, regarding potential child abuse issues. I'd only put them on this list when there's a crossroads with abuse and child and life care planning.
Mhm.
So there very well may be other cases. And actually, I'd love your advice if you think I should just put them all on there. Because I really typically have kept them separate, but should I?
We can talk about that after the deposition.
Okay.
So of the 10 depositions listed here, are these all cases in which you were retained to create a life care plan? Or
Yeah, give me 1 second. I don't remember what estate of MAA versus Seattle Children's Hospital was, I have to tell you. But the rest were on behalf of defense. Oh, yes, that might have started off as one of those kind of risk management cases and led to litigation. So that was on behalf of defense.
so the number 3 was defense.
All of that, all of the depositions that you're looking at
Mhm.
are on behalf of defense.
Okay. Now, in the last 4 years, have you been retained to create a life care plan but not given testimony in any case?
Yes.
Ha-
Oh, create a life care plan, but not get, oh, yeah, absolutely. And many times not even do a life care plan. Again, the majority of my work is education and consulting.
Mhm.
So very rarely does it end up in a deposition or trial.
Sure. So I guess to the best that you can, in the last 4 years, how many cases were you retained to create a life care plan but did not give testimony?
I couldn't really answer that accurately. If I could recharacterize how I would respond to that. Approximately 100 to 150 times per year, I am somehow involved in a case, in a referral that may lead to a quick phone call, that may lead to provision of research articles, that may lead to production of an undisclosed life care plan, or in this case, that may lead to an evaluation of the individual and production of a life care plan, and in this very small sliver to a deposition. And I should add, in New York and in Pennsylvania, there are no expert depositions, just to be clear about just the different structure in those cases, if you don't know.
I did not know that.
Yeah, it's great.
Um,
No offense. Yeah.
is this your first case in Georgia?
No, it is not. Because Atlanta on number 5 is in Georgia.
Ah, that's fair. I should have.
You should know that.
So I guess Dupree.
In my home, I hear an alarm. I'm going to ignore it for now. If you hear it, maybe I can get somebody to turn that alarm.
I can't hear it. If it's distracting you, we can take a break.
Yeah, it's totally annoying, but someone's turning it off. Okay.
So other than this case in Dupree, have you ever been retained to create a life care plan or consult on a case in the state of Georgia?
To my recollection, I have one other, to my recollection, I have another case in, you know what the alarm is? The time that I'm supposed to be on the deposition for you guys, which was 9 o'clock. Yeah, isn't that funny? So I do have another consultation in progress in Georgia. I, for the life of me, don't know where in Georgia. And I believe I did another consultation years ago also in Georgia. So maybe to the best of my recollection, another two or three.
Okay. And on the one that you are currently consulting on in Georgia, is that for the defense?
I don't know if it's still current. I have one. I mean, I'm one of those people that when I look at the document, I will know what it is instantly, but I let it go out of my head after. To the best of my knowledge, it's on behalf of defense.
Okay. And then the one that you had years ago, was that for the defense also?
Yes, I have testified on. I've never testified in Atlanta, aside from that deposition and today, except for a child abuse related case years ago that I do remember coming down for. I believe it was Georgia.
Okay. And then I'm going to save us some time instead of going through all of these. Well, I guess is this the first case, the Hofke case, is this a medical malpractice case?
I believe so, given the caption. I don't remember the issues.
Okay. Do you remember anything about the Marini case?
It was a renal case. I happen to based on my epidemiology background and life care planning, do some, nephrology, kidney failure kind of cases. And I do remember that one quite vividly.
And it was your role in the Marine.
And there's a typo on there. So let me, Marini versus DR.
Dr. Ford. My next question was going to be, what is DT?
Well, DT is a typo.
Hmm.
Don't play that for the jury. Come on. All right. Help me out here. All right. I do have typos. I'm not perfect. So it will be, yeah, doctor. Sorry about that.
No worries. And so was your role in that case as a nephrology expert, or was it as a life care planner?
A life care planner with, I would say, quite sophisticated additional knowledge and expertise in public health epidemiology and how the healthcare systems interface with, particularly with renal failure or end stage renal disease.
Okay. And then with the estate of MAA, I believe you said that this was also a med mal case.
I'm thinking about that, and it actually was a failure, a concern, I believe, a concern for failure to diagnose child abuse. I don't think that was a life care plan off the top of my head. I'm sorry, I don't remember.
That's fine. But that you were retained by the defense, by the hospital.
By the hospital.
Okay. Number 4, do you remember what the Matthews case was about?
Yes, a woman and her family were, as in your case, struck by a vehicle. Some family members passed away, and the living family member needed a life care plan. It might have also been a relative of hers as well. So that was that case.
Okay. And you were retained by Sunbelt Rentals, the defendant?
Some entity that was representing them, per se, but I never spoke to somebody from the company.
And number 5, the Dupree case in Atlanta. What was that case about?
Do you have the transcript from that?
Do I want it or do I have it?
No. Do you have it? I just want to make sure, because a cell, I don't know what a cell is, so that's why I'm asking. So that case is deep, I remember it very well. A young man allegedly was riding his bicycle and fell off of his bicycle when he was 12, and he sustained significant traumatic brain injury, and the litigation was essentially, I believe, suing the manufacturer of the bicycle. And I was retained to do a life care plan and vocational evaluation of the young man, and it is not leading to a trial.
Okay. And you were retained by the manufacturer?
By a law firm.
Okay. And who was the defense firm that retained you on that one?
No idea of the name. I'm so sorry.
It's all right. Do you know the name of the lawyer who you worked with?
Not off the top of my head.
Do you remember the plaintiff's firm or plaintiff's lawyer?
They were out of Tennessee. I only remember that because my daughter goes to college there. And I remembered, I do not recall. The testimony was in Atlanta and the jurisdiction was in Georgia, but I don't recall the parties that you're asking.
Sure. Number 6, do you recall what the Brown case was about?
No recollection.
But you were retained by the defense?
Yes.
Okay.
It was a pediatric case. It was a pediatric case in a med mal, but I don't remember the specifics.
Okay.
That was, this one was another renal case.
And just so we have a clear record, number 7, Preston case.
Yes.
Can you tell us what that is about?
Another similar to number 2.
Okay. Is MBMC like Missouri something medical center?
Missouri Baptist Medical Center, I believe. And
Yeah.
that I will have the case caption fixed also.
And you were retained by a law firm representing the defendant hospital in the Preston case?
Yes.
Number 8, the Carter case. Do you remember what that case was about?
Yes, an anoxic brain injury case in a child with a pre-existing developmental disability. There was an allegation of medical malpractice, and I was retained on behalf of the law firm attached to that hospital.
Okay. Number 9, the Hess/Aledo case. Do you remember what that was about?
My recollection is that that was a spinal cord, an individual with a spinal cord injury, retained on behalf of the defense.
Okay. And then the Phillips case. What was the Phillips case about?
Another spinal cord injury, to the best of my recollection.
And again, retained by the law firm that represented one of the defendants.
Yes.
Okay. I'm not going to go through the trial list except to ask what brought you to Sydney, Australia, and how do I do that? Oh, I'm just kidding.
It wasn't so exciting. It was probably just where I am now. It was remote. Yeah, somehow I do some international work. None of them have led to trials, except
Okay.
that was a plaintiff case, by the way.
Can you see plaintiff's exhibit 672?
Yes.
And does this appear to be a screenshot of our practice page from the Empirical Planners website?
Yes, I could barely read it, but yes.
Do you see the do you see the highlighted text that says sorry, I'm trying to get rid of it. Our diverse client base spanning over 20 years includes the nation's largest insurance companies, government agencies, and law firms, end quote.
Yeah, and you're putting a bit of a chuckle on my face because it's either changed or about to be changed by our IT, guy, because I was just asked about that the other day. The same question about the insurance companies. So I think the language is different for the same reasons we dissected earlier.
Okay, so you're not currently marketing to the nation's largest insurance companies?
I don't market, I don't advertise, I don't know how people find me. I don't market at all. So I can't answer affirmatively to that.
Fair enough. All right, has any court ever ruled verbally or by written order that you are not qualified to testify as an expert about any subject?
No, there was one issue that I always like to explain because it's out there, where I was provided with information that I wasn't supposed to be provided with. And because of that, I was precluded from testifying using that information in the formulation of my opinion. So it had nothing to do with me per se, but it was like a whole big thing. And I think it was Walmart or Kmart, one of the big companies. And I don't even remember which quote side I was doing it for. It was another, I should just to add on from you asked my areas of expertise, accidents involving children, burns, things like that. I've done some civil reviews, mostly on behalf of plaintiff, given the interface with forensics and biomechanics and all that.
Okay.
So that was the only issue. There was like a quote problem with my testimony, but
Okay. And what, if you remember, what was the nature of the information given to you that was?
Oh, and I've also testified in a Fry hearing or two involving research that I've done. So I should add that.
Okay. So in the Walmart case where a portion of, or I guess your testimony was limited.
Might have been Kmart or Walmart or Target. I don't know there, but anyway.
We'll call it the big box superstore case. What were you provided that required your testimony to be limited?
Like a secret recording that I was that was sent to me, and I watched it, and I could, yeah.
Do you remember what the secret recording showed?
It was a secret. I'm just kidding. No, but it was a secret. I'm not going to get myself involved in answering that because I had to sign that I didn't see it and would never talk about it again. It wasn't so exciting, though, I can tell you. It just was something that I wasn't supposed to see.
So you signed an NDA?
I don't know what an NDA is. I just remember this was like 10 years ago and it was all kinds of drama around it.
Okay.
And I think it's out there, which is the only reason I'm mentioning it, because I want to explain it.
So did you sign some agreement saying that you would not talk about it?
I believe so, because the whole thing became a big production.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know for sure.
Sure. All right. Can you see Plaintiff's Exhibit 674?
Yes.
And is this your fee schedule in this case?
If it's signed, it should be. We've made some tweaks to that as well in recent time, but whenever, if it's signed, it would be. I can't tell what we've tightened it up a bit.
Okay, and so that's actually my next question was going to be, do you have a signed copy of this agreement?
We should. My office should have gotten that to you, but
okay,
Right.
it's not, that's really not a big deal at all. We can follow up with Miss Diddle after the deposition.
for all I know, it could have been unsigned, and that's something we're trying to keep better track of.
I believe we have a signed one. I'll send it, Matt.
Okay.
If we do.
And then, so I see here for depositions, you charge $5,000 a day.
Yes.
And is it $5,000 regardless of how long the deposition lasts?
Yes.
So even if we're here for just 2 hours today, it's $5,000.
You can keep me all day or 2 hours. Yes.
Okay.
It is a block the time, block the day. You never know what happens kind of day.
Okay. And then I see here that your trial testimony is $10,000 a day.
If there's an overnight stay, yes.
So if you came to the trial of this case and testified on behalf of the defendant, you would charge them $10,000?
Not for Atlanta, because I could get there and back in a day. I try to do that.
Okay.
Unless the flights were messed up, the flights didn't work. It would probably be 7,500 if it's in a distance where I can fly in and fly out.
Okay, fair enough. If you need to take a break at any point, let me know.
No, I'm good.
Um,
I'm sorry for the background noise.
oh,
We
you're
can't-
fine. I can't hear anything.
It's dogs.
Can you see plaintiff's exhibit 676?
Fine, it's fine. Yes, I can.
And so that, like I told you before, this is the sole invoice that we received. Does this represent all of the work that you've done on this case? You know, other than today's deposition.
Can you scroll down to the date?
Mhm.
No, because my report was generated May 3rd. And I interviewed Dr. and Mr. Thomas and observed Kendall on April 12th. So there must be another floating invoice somewhere that wasn't sent yet.
Okay, so I guess typically, when do you send invoices?
Again, not my part of it, but typically, just to be less, I guess, irritating to our clients, we don't send them like at little piecemeal times. Sometimes at the end of a month, or at the end of a case when it closes, that kind of thing.
Okay. Do you have any idea how much time has been worked but not invoiced yet?
I would say a fair amount, because the bulk of that at that point was record review, kind of a drafting, kind of setting up different, I think you have my Excel sheets and all that stuff, right? Right?
I do, or I
Yeah.
have a single Excel sheet.
There's 4 pages in it. Can you make sure?
So I was not able to download the Excel spreadsheet. So
You want me-
can't say.
Okay.
We can figure that out after.
Well, you might want to ask me questions about it if you want me to help you download it.
Well, that would be great.
Yeah, I'm happy to. So my process would be up until before the interview. I'm kind of ready and familiar enough and have the medical chart reviewed and have a sense of the framework of where the case is. Then I get what I call really ready and then really start to draft a report. So there would be a fair amount of work done subsequent to that date. I don't know how many hours, but it certainly would be in excess of 20 additional hours for sure.
Okay. And then there are a few conference calls on here that I just wanted to ask about. Well, I'll highlight them for you. Let's change it to a different color. I don't like the red.
Sure.
So it looks like you had a conference call on December 20th, 2022 for about 40 minutes. Do you recall that conversation, that phone call?
I have no recollection of the phone call. I'm sorry. But if it's a conference call, it's logged in a kind of QuickBooksy system that way. A little different than QuickBooks, but I don't recall.
So instead of going through all of these conference calls, do you recall any of these conference calls?
I don't recall the specific substance of them, but they were all with, I do know they were all with Ms. Diddle and or somebody from her law firm if she wasn't on one. They were not with any extraneous parties or other experts or physicians or the family.
Okay. And then that sort of segues into my lawyer communications list of questions. So
Sure.
you have communicated with the lawyers you just told me. Did they explain the facts of the case to you prior to retaining you?
Ms. Diddle did. Essentially, I remember it quite vividly. Ms. Diddle reached out. We had a lovely conversation, her explaining that Ms. Thomas, Kendall, if I can respectfully call her Kendall,
Of course.
was in, was what you said before, hit by an automobile, suffered significant traumatic brain injury, that it was early on in her recovery, and really wasn't a complete sense of what her recovery would be and how she was doing. I remember it was really early on that I received the phone call. I don't know if it's reflected in typically a first phone call, I don't ever log or, quote bill for. I just like to kind of know if I want to get involved or not, which is most of the time I actually turn down a lot of cases. And I seriously can quote, because I thought it was lovely, that they want to get a life care planner involved who will make sure that Kendall and her family have what they need in an objective, honest way, and that they have heard through the grapevine that I was a genuine and honest person. I really remember that phone call. So that's what happened. A straight shooter, no holes barred life care plan that reflected the adequate needs for Kendall.
Okay. Did Ms. Diddle or any of the other lawyers say anything to you about the speed at which Isabella Field was driving at the time of the collision?
No. And had they, I would have stopped them, because I really don't want to know the nuances.
Okay. Did the defense lawyers tell you to make any assumptions about Kendall Thomas's life expectancy?
Assumptions, no. I, as an epidemiologist and life care planner, I always raise that question. If there is if the scope of the project potentially may include their request for an assessment of life expectancy, because I don't want the assumption to be there that I'll do it. Some cases I'm comfortable, some I'm not, some I want to make sure there's somebody else involved. And that was a discussion in this case, for sure.
What was discussed specifically about life expectancy?
That I made it clear that depending on certain parameters of that Kendall would have during her recovery, or hopefully her recovery, which turned out to be a bit of a recovery. I can't say she did quote well, but at the beginning, you don't know where things are necessarily going. And that part of the objective evidence-based assessment of future potential damages would include understanding the evidence base for how long Kendall may survive. And I wanted to have a sense of what the firm's thoughts were about how to do this. And so that's how it was discussed.
Okay. And what were the firm's thoughts on how to do life expectancy?
I don't recall the specifics of exactly what they said or I said, but I did recommend having, so there's neurologists can give life expectancy, I can give life expectancy, using evidence-based data, and I'm comfortable to do that. But I also prefer there to be an analysis by the individuals who actually do the data analysis themselves. I don't have access to that data. I only am able to read the articles. So I did recommend a consultation by the granular researcher who does, or one of them who does that research. So just to make clear on record, I'm fully comfortable to testify and interpret literature regarding life expectancy. Yet I disclose to attorneys, look, you might also want to get somebody who actually does this research and get somebody like that involved.
Was Dr. Chevelle the individual that you recommended to the defense lawyers?
Dr. Chevelle is one of the authors of much of the literature, and I did recommend him, knowing he was around, and I know his email off the top of my head, so I gave it to her, gave it to Ms. Diddle.
Do you often work?
Actually, to tell you the truth, wait, she might have already had him involved before. So I don't even remember, but I know that I knew he was involved or going to be involved.
Do you often work with Dr. Chevelle?
No, I never met the guy. I don't even think we've spoken on the phone, but there are cases that he's involved in that I've seen his reports, and I've never heard him testify, but I know that he does the type of assessment that I find to be important, because either it's on par with what my interpretation of literature might be, or I learn something, or I might say, what are you talking about? And want to ask some questions and have opinions of my own.
Okay. So were you told to avoid giving an opinion on Kendall's life expectancy?
Not to my recollection.
Okay. What is the life expectancy of a healthy non-Hispanic Black 15-year-old girl?
I'd have to go to the CDC table to I just want to turn on just take a break for one moment, just to make sure you don't have to do off record. Hold on one moment. Would you be able to tell anybody in the home to not text me? Thank you so much. I said we have some construction going on, so
Okay.
so
we have a clean record. Let me just ask that question one more time, so we don't have all that stuff.
sorry.
It's okay. What's the life expectancy of a healthy non-Hispanic Black 15-year-old girl?
I would have to go to the CDC life table and look it up on the mark, but likely probably 76-ish, 77, somewhere around there, given that she's that age now. I'd have to look it up though.
So is the National Vital Statistics reports published on August 8th, 2022 a credible source for life expectancy?
Yes.
And did you rely on that publication for creating your report?
I did not put in this report, I did essentially knowing that there was a truncated life expectancy and agreeing with that, I went up to 25 years in my cost analysis, yet did the life care plan on page 53, basically demonstrating from age 18 until life expectancy what the yearly cost would be, so that the author, the reader, could simply multiply that number. And then I created a visual of going up to 25 additional years of life. And that's on page 54.
Okay.
And I see another typo, I'm sorry. On page 54, the chart says cumulative costs and it should say cumulative. I messed up and didn't push the chart out enough, so I'll fix that. No matter how many times you read something, that's whatever pages, you keep finding things, so I am sorry.
No worries. Can you see plaintiff's exhibit 351?
Yes.
And this is the CDC report that we were just talking about, correct?
Yes.
All right, I'm gonna go to page 2.
Matt, if I could just jump in, I think you previously referenced the 2017 table, but you're showing her now the 2020 table.
I said August 8th, 2022.
This is a publication in 2022 using data from 2020. There might be an updated one out now, but we can
Okay.
just, yes, yeah.
Can y'all hear me right now?
Yes.
Oh,
Yes.
my computer just blanked out.
Oh, no, we hear you. And we see your screen's up with the table and 15 and 61.3 are highlighted.
Oh man. So my screen just completely blanked out.
Well, I see it, so I can answer the question I know you're gonna ask me. Non-Hispanic Black female has 61.3 additional years of life. And this is the CDC life table, which you would add to her 15. So, I was on the mark. 76, 77, 61, wait, 6, you took it off. And now
So, yeah, everything's lagging on my computer right now. Hang on.
okay, 61 plus 15 is 71, 72, 3, 4, 5. So 70, 77 or so would be a normal life expectancy.
Okay. And then I wanted to go to page 43. And this is the table for the life table for non-Hispanic Black females in the United States. You agree?
We just did, that's the same data that you just had above.
And so the life expectancy though is
61.3 additional years.
And
So,
then
wait, you know that, right? That you're adding 61 to 15.
correct. Yeah.
Okay. Sorry, I didn't mean to.
Oh no, you're totally fine. And then if you look at this, the second column from the right, does this mean that over 6 million people lived beyond that life expectancy?
Yeah, so in general, I'll just explain how this works. So you're born as a baby and your life expectancy at the time of birth is 75. You get through to age 1 and you've avoided all those complications of what happens to little babies in the first year. And as we grow, we've overcome obstacles and risks, drug overdose, suicide, not that it can't happen later, but you know where I'm coming from, drowning, which would typically be younger people. So you hit the age of 15 and your life expectancy is 77, but then you've continued to grow. And if you go to the bottom, right, scroll the bottom for a minute, all the way to the end, keep going. So if you're lucky enough to make it to age 100, you still have 2.4 years left, meaning, but only 3,216 will live beyond 100 or over. So what that basically is saying, of the pool of whatever is at the top, I can't remember off the top of my head, that the population continues to, of the 75, 35, and it's person years, and that's another, I'm not going to bore you with that, but basically I'm not going to go into that, but just let's consider them units of people and years. that funnel of it continues to get lower because some of those people have died. So that's just the way the statistics will work.
Sure. Okay, that makes sense. But you do agree that over 6 million 15 to 16-year-old non-Hispanic Black females lived beyond their life expectancy.
Well, person years, not necessarily persons.
Okay.
But let's just cut to the chase. Obviously, Kendall did not pass away. And they live beyond the age of 15, 16, like she did.
Okay. Do you have any idea how that publication collects or compiles data?
For an academic granular answer, I would rather look at the document and pull it from you. It's the vital statistics, death certificates and all that. But I'd like to give you a more, eloquent response if I could read from it, unless I'm kind of answering what you want.
Let me pull it up. Actually, let me just ask you this. Are you aware if the CDC data sample includes people with illnesses?
Yeah.
And would some of those illnesses be people with traumatic brain injuries?
Yes. And what we're looking at is a group of individuals. Let's say there are 100 people, right? Looking at 100 people, and I'm making up numbers. 3% of them have cancer. 10% of them have heart disease. 0.% of them have a spinal cord injury. 0.0 have a traumatic brain injury. And looking at it as a whole population. And hence why some of those numbers are going to be, people that's why there's ranges, and that is the middle range. So some people are going to live on one side of that and on the other side of that, depending on more positive risk factors or negative. So you're looking at smokers in the bigger population, and they're statistically evidence-based on this end. And then there's research taking, I'm sorry, the stenographer is not able to show my hand. So taking the silos of individuals, let's say with pancreatic cancer, right? They're going to be in that big group, but that number really doesn't tell us much about that, right? So you take that silo of individuals with pancreatic cancer, and they unfortunately would have a significantly truncated life expectancy because they're on the way lower end of that number. Did that?
That makes sense. So I guess then when you have a healthy individual, do you extend their life expectancy?
The answer would be no, because we're talking about a middle ground of the population. But if you then asked me, and I'm not unaware of any literature like this actually, but if you said I would like you to give me the life expectancy of people who have been astronauts and exposed to different gravity, like some kind of esoteric question, I would see if there's literature for siloing out a certain risk factor or positive or negative risk factor. There's obviously a lot of research on conditions, on traumatic brain injury, spinal cord injury, cancer, because those are populations where the years of life left are salient and tangible to analyze.
Are you familiar with the annuity mortality table of 1949 Ultimate?
You'd have to bring that one up for me.
Well, we can just move on.
But I'm going to write that down because, can you say it again? Did you say 1949?
Annuity mortality table for 1949 Ultimate.
ultimate,
Mm-hmm.
whether I've seen it or not in my training back then, I don't recall, but I cannot talk about that one unless you plop it up and I can review it.
We'll skip that one. You'd agree that your report has Kendall dying at 40 years old.
Give me a moment just to refresh my recollection. I must clarify your interpretation of my life care plan. I extrapolated up to 25 years, but I did not provide you with a life expectancy opinion independent of my own. I did not, well, before I say did not, because I didn't have my hour before to read, give me a moment.
Let's go off the record while you look. I'm gonna run to the bathroom and then I'll just re-ask the question once you have the opportunity.
Yeah, no, I can answer it. I can answer it if you want.
Well, let's just take a quick break.
Okay, sure.
You'd agree that your report has Kendall dying at 40 years old, correct?
I disagree with the characterization that you have. I extrapolated her years of life left up until age 25, which would make her 40. But I intentionally gave the unit cost per year subsequent to the age of 18 as a line item so that it could be extrapolated for different scenarios. So you could literally ask me, what would it be if blah, 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 and I would add that with one caveat. And this was just to make math the tiniest bit easier to break down and understand. In one-time costs, since you can't buy 2/4 of a bed for that $30,000 in durable medical items, I put in units of replacement up until the bottom line of 25 years. But if you then said to me right now, Dr. Cantor, assuming she lives another 10 years, there would be additional units in only that category. Everything else you can extrapolate based on my 18 to life expectancy yearly allocation.
Sure, but your report only projected medical expenses up to 25 years.
My report, I think that answer is a bit mischaracterized, or the answer I didn't answer yet. The question, I would like to clarify your question. The report provides an annual cost after the age of 18 through life expectancy. I added to that a chart that in my Excel sheet, you'll see if you open it, or I didn't mean that sarcastically. If you're able to pull it down, I could show you how it is. That extrapolates it out even more. But I put those 25 years because in sum and substance, the data reflects that her living beyond age 40 falls outside of the scope of the literature that I would rely upon. I do not believe that I will be offering a concrete opinion on life expectancy in this case. Yet, it is my opinion that that range is on par. I would say 12 to 25 years with maybe a dead center of about, I'm sorry, it's a terrible adjective or whatever. A middle number of maybe 18 years old, 18 additional years.
So then why did the table that we're both talking about on the last page of the document only go up to 25 years if you are prepared to give an answer as to, what the cost would be if she lives another 30 years or 40 years?
Well, it is not my opinion based on my experience training, as a life care planner, that she will even remotely live a full life expectancy. I went up to 25 years, which is beyond where I would, and frankly, I'm not quite sure what Dr. Chevelle's take on this was, or the retained neurologist that I did she was so lovely, actually. And I cannot pronounce her name for the 10th time. I don't know what their opinions are off the top of my head, but my range would be up to 25 additional years based on the literature that I would rely upon. I'm going to say in this case, I am not going to be providing a life expectancy opinion, and I'm more than happy to extrapolate out the chart to whatever age you ask me. And I can tell you how to do that yourself, would just be take page 53, the value 277,026.19, multiply that by however many additional years your question would be. So it would be 2.7 additional $1 million if she lived 35 additional years, meaning until the age of 50.
Okay. So at the trial of this case, you will not offer any opinions about your belief of Kendall's life expectancy. Is that fair?
At this moment in time, sitting here today, I do not believe that I will be offering an opinion as to the average, middle ground number of life expectancy. I very well may concur with the opinion of others, whether it's your experts, whether it's, I don't know. I will answer questions honestly. I will also say that there are times where it is my style to give a range, because that's why I went up to 25 here, because at this moment in time, my take on life expectancy or additional years for Kendall would be 18, 20, somewhere 16, 18, 20, somewhere around there. And I extrapolated it out to 25.
Okay. So I guess what I'm trying to understand is, if you're called at trial, are you going to share your opinion that Kendall has 18 to 20 more years, or are you not?
I couldn't answer that today. I do not know.
And then what literature are you relying upon to predict, or not predict, but let's strike that. Upon what authority do you rely in opining that Kendall has 18 to 25 years left to live?
I did not source my literature in this report, but I typically rely on the Chevelle literature, and some other articles that are out there. I could not name them off the top of my head. I have a file that I didn't, as I said before, I didn't pull in reference in this case in a granular way. But given her condition, being immobile, G-tube fed, that would be, the range that I would opine.
Why didn't you source your report?
Wasn't intentional. I didn't give a concrete life expectancy. So had I written a 10-page paper on life expectancy, I would have explained it, sourced the articles, and so on and so forth.
Is there a specific Chevelle article that you are referring to, or just sort of an accumulation of his works?
Well, not just him, but his, in my opinion, from the, perspective of epidemiologist and all that, the methodology and consistency with other literature as well. Like there's the nice handle on life expectancy literature that is in line with his work.
Do you have copies of the Chevelle works that you have read and are relying on?
Well, again, I don't want to use the word relying on, because I generated this chart with experience training. I think I said earlier, I might not have had a granular pull go back to, this is my work. This is my work at my day job and my main job. And this, so I don't have a direct correlation to a specific article.
Okay. So then in putting that table that shows the medical expenses up to age 20 or up to 25 years from now, you're just relying purely on your experience? Is that fair?
Experience, training, certifications, and literature that just like you, I'm sure you don't have to pull up the law books every time you know what a law is. So we all synthesize literature and come up with understanding of topics that are within the scope of our expertise. I'm not able to discount relying on a particular article at the time I'm sitting here, at this deposition.
Okay. Can you tell me the name of a single piece of literature or study or any academic writing that suggests that a 15-year-old girl with a TBI will only live to the age of 25? It's not
so umbrella as you characterized it. It depends on the condition of the individual. And at the time today, specifically at this deposition, I'm not prepared to source an article for you.
So you can't give me the name of a single article that supports what you're saying?
That's not what I said. I'm unable to give you today an article that I, quote, relied upon, because I did not go back and do a granular literature review specific to Kendall.
Sure. And so my question is a little different than that. I understand that. So my question is like, sitting here today, can you think of any piece of literature, academic literature, that supports the proposition that Kendall will only live to a maximum of 25 years from now?
Well, again, I think you're mischaracterizing that I'm saying she will only live to 25 years from now. What I hope I conveyed was I provided, based on my experience, training, and the body of knowledge that I have, having done this work for, well over 22 years, 25 years, who knows? I finished my epidemiology degree in 1993. So I am familiar with the body of literature in general. So the Chevelle data, the umbrella of articles and research that Dr. Chevelle and his colleagues have published, and other studies that are also in the field that, frankly, I would have to pull up and read, refresh, recollect before I would give you a responsible answer.
So the answer is no. You can't tell me the name of a single specific article?
I don't think it's a yes or no answer.
Sure it is. Do you know the name of a specific article that I could read and could tell me the information that you're telling me?
Again, I am not prepared to give you an answer that's not an answer because again, I am not providing you with a concrete number for the years that Kendall would have to live left. For example, if somebody said to you, at what age does a child start to walk, right? You would probably say to me, around 1, around 1.5. You would say that based on your experience, your awareness, but you wouldn't source a particular article. I know you wouldn't be testifying as an expert in that regard. That's what I'm trying to convey today.
Sure. So then let's just pull this up real quick. Can you see the table that's on the last page of your report?
Yes.
If you're not saying that Kendall only has 25 years left, then why did you only do this table to 25 years? Again,
That it is based on my experience, training, and education, that it would be, I'd basically just be being I would say the methodology of a non-physician life care planner would be to press a button and go up to the CDC number. She is not the CDC number. She is not going to live a full life expectancy. So to merely spread out my Excel sheet that is already, embedded in the information I gave you would be an inaccurate and irresponsible representation of what a life care plan would be for Kendall.
Do you know to a reasonable degree of medical certainty that Kendall will not live a full life expectancy?
To a reasonable probability, the evidence doesn't. The answer is, it is more likely than not and reasonably probable that Kendall will not live into her 4th decade.
Sure. So I'm not talking about probability though. I'm saying, can you say with certainty that Kendall Thomas won't live to her full life expectancy?
I cannot say with certainty.
Okay. Oh, I took that off too soon. All right. So
But I'm sorry, I didn't really totally answer that. I cannot say with certainty if she will die tomorrow or live a full life expectancy.
So we're looking at the last page of your report, which we'll get into in more detail in a second. This is Plaintiff's Exhibit 675. Do you see the highlighted sentence at the top? It says, quote, Kendall has a truncated life expectancy secondary to her condition.
Yes.
End quote. And when you say secondary to her condition, do you mean her life expectancy is now lower after getting hit by Isabella Field's car?
Absolutely.
I think we just got this. So let me. You would agree that it's impossible to say with 100% certainty how long Kendall Thomas will live.
It's impossible to say how long any of us are going to live.
If you could do that, you would be flying around in your own private jet, right?
If I could do that, I would not want to be that person.
Yeah. Would you agree that it's a possibility that Kendall will live beyond 40 years old?
Possibility, not probability.
It is possible though, correct?
Possible.
What happens if the jury gives a verdict based on 25 years, but Kendall lives longer than 25 years?
Well, we run into issues that are outside the scope of what we could testify in a court, I believe, where Kendall will qualify for SSDI, and based on my experience and training and many years of experience with situations like this, she would be covered under SSDI and have the resources if her family was not there to care for her or did not have the funds to care for her, to continue to be cared for in a reasonable and appropriate way. We've agreed that she will need care the rest of her life. And I have no doubts, experience, or anything of the sort to suggest that if she turned 40 and all of a sudden funds ran out, then she becomes an individual, and actually with affordable, she could qualify for insurance. You know, we run into insurance and all the things we wouldn't be able to talk about.
Sure.
So when asked that question, I would very carefully and skillfully answer it that she would, as a citizen of the United States, she would continue to have the ability and resources to be safe and cared for in a reasonably appropriate manner.
Sure. And I mean, obviously, you've done this enough to know that that's all collateral source, and that she's entitled to recover the full amount without considering any of that. So,
Well,
hold on.
Yeah.
So what happens if the jury gives a verdict based on a 25-year life care plan, but she lives longer than 25? Isn't it true that she is not made whole under those circumstances?
Objection. That's well outside of the scope of what she's being asked to testify to. It's asking her to speculate. It's assuming a whole bunch of factors. She could just as easily live less than 25 years and the jury had compensated her for 25 years. So it's just not an appropriate line of questioning.
Sure, you can answer.
Well, no, the answer is it'd probably be a mistrial, because I'd have to answer your question honestly. I would answer it like I just answered it. So,
Okay.
you know, those are questions that I think, and Ms. Diddle, I think if that line and avenue you're going down, I think that we should discuss those questions not being asked, so that those lines don't put me in a position to have to answer honestly.
Sure. All right. Well, let me ask it in a different way then. You'd agree that Kendall only gets one chance to ask a jury for money, right?
Well, her yeah. I mean, yes, there would be, if this was a trial, that the one opportunity to seek non-collateral resource funds would be during that trial. It does not preclude her in any way from having insurance, Social Security, disability income, and you and I both know that.
Mm-hmm. And so Kendall won't get to come back and ask for more money if she lives beyond 25 years. Fair?
If the funds run out at the time that would happen, she would be eligible for the collaterals that we wouldn't be able to talk about.
So I'm not talking about collateral source. I'm talking about what Kendall is entitled to. If she runs out of money and comes back, or strike that. Kendall can't come back and ask for more money if she lives beyond 25 years.
That is, yeah, I mean, that is what I have previously answered.
So that's accurate.
I said that she would be, my answer is a reasonably probable evidence-based answer is that using using the leverage of not allowing somebody to talk about what would happen is a question that could get us into a dicey situation if I was asked that, because you and I both know that is not what would happen.
Well, that's the collateral source piece of it is not responsive to what I'm asking you. All I'm asking you is Kendall won't get to come back and ask for more money if she lives beyond 25 years. Is that fair to say?
Kendall, but coming on the tails of your other questions about the needs that she might have, she will not be able to go back and say, hello, I need more money, but she will have the care that she needs to be safe and cared for. So I just don't want my answer to be snippeted out without fully characterizing what my response and opinion is.
Sure. But again, that's not responsive to the question. It's a yes or no question. Will Kendall be able to come back and ask the jury for more money if she runs out of money and lives beyond 25 years old or 25
Same
years?
objection.
Yeah, I don't feel comfortable answering that in the way the question is characterized.
So you're going to refuse to answer that question?
I wouldn't say that. I'd probably give some thought to it, and I probably would consult with Ms. Diddle to understand the legalities of, or whatever, the restrictions I would have, because some answers are yes or no and some aren't.
Mm-hmm. So, we're here taking your deposition today, and I'm entitled to ask you as many questions as I want for 7 hours.
Yeah.
And I'm entitled to answers to them. And so my question to you is, will Kendall be able to come back and ask a jury for more money if she lives beyond 25 years and runs out?
Same objection.
Yeah, I cannot answer that. The law could change. I truly cannot answer that question. You
Okay.
could have, I don't know, structured settlement. I have no idea. That's not my world. I do not have the ability to answer that question.
Will medical prices go up in the future?
I'm not here to testify as an economist.
I'm asking you though, will medical prices likely go up in the future?
Objection. Asked and answered.
It was not answered.
She said she is not qualified to testify as an economist.
Well, I wouldn't.
That's not
say-
an economic
I
question.
don't want to say I'm not qualified to testify as an economist. I do have a master's degree in public health, epidemiology, includes health policy. I just want to explain that I'm not testifying as an economist or offering opinions on the trajectory of healthcare expenses. The answer to your question is, to a reasonable degree of probability, the cost of healthcare based on historical measures will go up. Does that mean we are going to have a national healthcare system? Does that mean we're going to have massive revisions in our healthcare system? I don't know.
What is a life care plan?
A life care plan in the context of litigation is a review of the evidence-based data in a case involving the medical records, pre-existing records, the depositions. I very much appreciate you giving me the chance to observe Kendall and speak to her, her really lovely family. And I know that wasn't typical for what you do in your jurisdiction. So I really appreciate that. And using that information to come up with future care needs, including medical, laboratory, medication, equipment, architectural revisions, care, etc.
Excuse me. Would it be fair to say that a life care plan is intended to plan for the entire lifetime of the needs of an individual who has been catastrophically injured?
With the clarification that There are life care plans in the context of litigation, and there are life care that are attributable to a particular event. So for example, if an individual has diabetes and is hit by a car, they very well may need insulin, and that insulin would not be included in the life care plan in the context of litigation because you're attributing it to an event.
So, all right, so let me phrase it differently. Would it be fair to say that the goal of a life care plan in litigation is intended to plan for the entire lifetime of needs of an individual who's been catastrophically injured? I'm sorry, strike that. Would it be fair to say that a life care plan in litigation is intended to plan for the entire lifetime of needs related to an alleged event that an individual who has been catastrophically injured will need for the rest of their life? That was a terrible question.
A form, but you can answer.
Yeah, and evidence, as long as it's an evidence-based entirety of life.
Okay. In other words, the goal of the life care plan is to capture all possible future medical needs of an individual related to the incident causing the injuries.
Reasonably
Form, but you can
reasonably,
answer.
sorry, reasonably probable, not possible.
Would it be fair to say that a life care plan should be over-inclusive rather than under-inclusive to avoid out-of-pocket expenses?
I think you're, I know what you're reading from. In the context of a forensic life care plan, in the context of litigation, you used a word that I overcompensated or over something. What'd you say?
Would it be fair to say that a life care plan should be over-inclusive rather than under-inclusive to avoid out-of-pocket expenses?
It should include reasonably probable needs to keep the individual safe and at least at a baseline status if there's no hope for any improvement.
Would you agree that a more comprehensive life care plan is a better life care plan?
Not necessarily.
How so?
I've seen comprehensive life care plans, quote, that have items in them that have that make no sense, that have no evidence base behind them. So I'm not going to pull this the longer the better at all.
When you're hired to prepare life care plans by defense law firms, do you normally make the life expectancy shorter than when you're hired by a plaintiff's law firm?
The answer is absolutely not. I am the straightest shooter you're going to come across. I practice evidence-based medicine. My answers would be the same regardless. Hence why many times defense law firms are not happy when I give them an answer. I'm sorry, plaintiff law firms. No, defense law firms are not happy when I give them an answer because my answer is going to be straight shooter and often favors the plaintiff.
Does the life care plan you created for Kendall Thomas capture all of her possible future medical needs with 100% certainty?
Reasonably probable, and nothing. And nothing is 100% certainty.
So let me ask the question again then. Does the life care plan you created capture all of Kendall Thomas's possible future medical needs with 100% certainty?
No.
What is your level of certainty that the plan you created will capture Kendall Thomas's entire life?
I couldn't give you an exact number, but over 51%, reasonably probable.
Is any level of certainty less than 100 acceptable in your opinion?
Well, I couldn't I completely couldn't answer that question. It's so overly broad.
The goal of a life care plan is to, in your words, is to capture all reasonably probable medical expenses, correct?
Medical care, etc., relying on evidence-based data. I'll give you an example. So in some cases, a repeat ACDF surgery on the neck might be included in a life care plan, and the evidence-based data supports about 15% of individuals actually need the revision. So the revision is not a reasonably probable allocation unless this scheduled surgery is happening, there's something going on, there's some very concrete treating physician who's saying they need it tomorrow, that kind of thing. So reasonably probable, supported by evidence-based data, does not mean that if I was asked a question, I would say, this is what the evidence-based supports, this is why I didn't include it, so on and so forth. But reasonably probable allocations that are supported by evidence-based data.
Do you agree that Kendall Thomas deserves more than a 50% chance of this award? Strike that, let me re-ask that. Do you agree that Kendall Thomas deserves more than a 50% chance of this medical life care plan capturing all of her needs related to this collision?
However, challenge. Yeah.
Hold on one second. I'm gonna object to the form of the question, but you can answer.
However, challenging it may be for any professional to silo emotion from science and evidence base. I could not answer that question because this is evaluation of special damages. This isn't emotional. This is outside the scope of what myself as I consider a professional scientist would be opining on.
Okay, well, let me ask you this. If a medical life care plan has a 50% chance of capturing all reasonably probable medical needs related to the collision, then would you agree that there's a 50% chance that the life care plan doesn't cover all of those needs?
You're mischaracterizing.
Hold on, I'm gonna object to the form of the question and also that it does mischaracterize her previous testimony, but you can answer.
The answer is it's not answerable in the way you asked it.
How so?
That you mischaracterized what I do perceive to be a very responsible and professional answer that I gave, describing the definition of reasonable probability and explaining that that doesn't always mean 51%. We could look at, again, going to pancreatic cancer, that, there's I'm just coming up with this, a 70% or 30% survival rate up to 5 years. I'm just throwing that out there. That's certainly higher than 51%. There's a 10%, you have to come up with the granular question for me in order for me to give what I consider an irresponsible and overly broad response.
Sure. So I'm not trying to mischaracterize anything that you've said. This is a hypothetical question. And if a medical life care plan has a 50% chance of capturing all of someone's medical needs, then the inverse of that is true also, right? That there's a 50% chance that it won't capture the medical needs.
I'm going to object to the form of the question and also that it's an improper hypothetical.
Yeah, it's just too simplistic for me to answer. I can't answer it.
What other facts do you need to answer that?
Every single item in that life care plan, all the evidence base behind each of those items, the shared allocation, within each category. It's just not, it's just, with no offense to you, it's a very simple question for a very complicated response that question deserves.
Sure. So, I mean, I think it is a simple question, and I think that it has a simple answer. Which is no. Or yes, there is a 50% chance that it doesn't capture those medical needs. Is
Objection. It's
that
not
fair?
even a question.
Yeah, I'm not able to answer it in the way you're asking it.
Excuse me.
Right. Are you seeing plaintiff's exhibit 675?
Yes.
Okay. So we'll go to page 7. This is page 4 of the actual life care plan. And by the way, just for the record, so I'm going to I'm going to put the life care plan as an exhibit without the highlights. The only reason I'm doing these highlights is for ease of reading since we're remote.
Okay.
So
Are you, just so that we're clear, sorry, are you going to read those portions in, or how are we going to make sure that we know?
Yeah, so I'm just going to go through, and I've essentially just highlighted the portions that I want to draw her attention to, so it's
Okay.
easier for her to see them. And
That's
the exhibit that's actually in the record will be an unmarked one.
Okay, perfect.
Wait, can I just, I'm sorry, I just want to find the page. I'm so sorry.
Sure, yeah, no problem at all. So we're on page 4 of
Yeah. Give me a second. I need bifocals, man. All right. Okay. Sorry. Okay, I got it.
So
Let me just see what's here.
can you see the
Yeah, I should have put the ramp in.
so yeah, so you see,
Totally. 100%. Yeah. I would add the ramp.
so why didn't your life care plan include the cost of modifying the home to build ramps?
To add a ramp, I totally appreciate you bringing this up, and I will modify accordingly.
Thank you. So, and just to get the record clear, if the Thomas family ultimately built ramps for Kendall, you'd agree that that should be in the life care plan, correct?
It not only should be in the life care plan, because that would be future, that it's something that makes complete sense, absolutely. And I am remiss for having not included that in my life care plan. I just want to make sure I didn't put it in a different category. If you give me a sec.
Sure.
Yeah, I can see what happened in why I did it, didn't do it properly. But I should add it in.
Okay.
The home was already modified. So the typically I will include what's about $109,000, the veterans cap, to do a fully modified home. This was already modified, so it just it was not, I should have put in ramp. That's that.
Okay. Are there any other items that were improperly omitted from your life care plan?
Well, I wouldn't know if you brought them up unless you brought them up at the moment at this moment. Not that I'm aware of. I do believe I did add the ceiling lift, which would be another modification. just looking at this page, but I am an open book. If there are items that you raise that were not included, or conversely, items that I included that were not appropriate to continue, to have in there.
Okay. All right, so just so I'll give you a second to follow, we're flipping to page 8 of your report.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, do you see where you wrote that Dr. Thomas testified that an inpatient facility is not an option?
Yeah, I think I should have said stated, not testified.
Either way. And your life care plan did not include an option for inpatient care, correct?
No, I mean, I gave her part of why I believe very strongly in talking and speaking to families is that I felt that would be in egregious discordance with what the family wanted.
Okay, that's fair. What will happen if Kendall's parents pass away before she does?
Well, again, I don't think you could ask me about that in court. If she did have allocated funds from a life care plan and they quote ran out, and none of her amazing siblings or extended family would be able or willing to care for her, she would have those collateral resources available to her to be safe and well cared for. Again, this is a reasonably probable life care plan. I was not presented with any information that would suggest a reasonably probable, abandonment of Kendall by her family, or an untimely and unexpected death of all of those individuals in her life who I have every reason to trust would be there for her, to love her and care for her.
Okay. Would you agree that if Kendall's parents became disabled or passed away in 2 weeks, it would be likely that Kendall would need to switch to inpatient care?
Objection.
Oh, I couldn't answer that. There's such a loving, extended family and community and church. I would not be responsible to parlay myself into that hypothetical. I think it would be terribly disrespectful to the family.
All right, we are now flipping to page 44.
Yes.
I'm sorry, 44, Matt?
44. It's
Okay.
47 of the PDF if you're in a PDF.
No, I've got it printed. Okay, thank you.
So you wrote, quote, once alleviated the physical exhaustion they're experiencing, it is my opinion that self-care is the proper route for Kendall and her family, end quote.
Self-hire, absolutely.
Self-hire. Okay. How, in your opinion, do you think Mr. and Mrs. Thomas will be alleviated of their physical exhaustion?
So I just want to super correct you. It's Dr. Thomas, not Ms. Thomas. She has achieved her doctorate in chiropractor. Dr. and Mr. Thomas have had terrible experiences with their attempts at getting agency care. They are overwhelmed. They are showing beyond words love and dedication to Kendall, while also managing their other all else that goes on in a busy house. They are completely exhausted. Dr. Thomas has the experience of hiring individuals through her practice. It is my strong belief, based on evidence base here because of the choices and desires that the family wants in a caregiver, that the allocation of the very, top heavy case management support coupled with the roadmap for self-hire through care.com and the payroll support and all that. I will put my pediatrician hat on here. They admittedly were completely wiped out, overwhelmed, couldn't stand the process they'd gone through with the agencies. And when they get the help in place and can, quote, physically catch their breath for a moment, I think that the choices they want in terms of a caregiver being religious and part of the family and having the flexibility to make the schedule and this and that self-hire will be the route that will work for them. They haven't tried it yet, and the agencies have been, a nightmare for them.
That only happens if the jury awards your life care plan, though, right?
Objection.
That question I don't understand. You mean if they don't give any funds?
They're only able to do what you just described if the jury gives the money associated, the cost of your life care plan.
Well, then we're getting into collateral sort. Even if they, quote, lose their, I totally don't understand your question.
The physical exhaustion is not going to be alleviated unless the jury awards your life care plan. Is that fair?
Well, let
A
me,
formal question.
I'm completely, maybe we're on two different wavelengths here. She is approved for care that they can't get, right? So whatever they have now is not working. They should be able to reallocate that funding to do self-hire in their current structure, although I'm not going to 100% testify to that until I poke around a little bit more on the Georgia, public, approved nursing, hiring yourself, that, that system. But your question's perplexing me. What they have now isn't working. They're completely overwhelmed. Perhaps that sentence could be stated with more clarity once supported with, I guess what I'm trying to say is, if these parents could sleep for a little while and catch up with get some help in there, the self-hire process, it's my opinion, will be the pathway they're asking for.
Mm-hmm. Okay, we can move on, but what poking around do you still need to do with regard to Georgia approved nursing hiring?
So what your question was, if they're not awarded funds, would they basically have care? Well, right now they are not getting any help, and they are approved for home care. The funds are there for them to do it. So what I meant was, if I was, if they, quote, lost their lawsuit and didn't get any funds, so that was your hypothetical, that if I were to answer, oh, well, then they can not be physically exhausted and miraculously a caregiver would show up. I can't answer that, because I would have to see if the funds that they're getting could create a self-hire structure or were obligated to go through some agency. I felt that the point that I was getting at with them, they're so tired and so sick of talking about the agency and all that. I did not want to question them, why haven't you done this? Why haven't you done that? I don't know if I said it as well as I could have, but that's what I was getting at.
Okay. If you'll flip to the next page, which is page 45.
Yeah,
So on this page, we're looking at your recommendations for Kendall Thomas.
yeah,
Okay. And then footnote 7 says that costs are adopted from Miss Greg Smith's plan unless otherwise noted.
correct.
And so that just means that you've used her plan, or, you know, the cost in her plan unless you've found some other source.
Well, I don't want to say quote some other source. If it was my not the allocations and not the amount, but the cost per unit, for example, if she's putting in, you know, a catheter or something like that, and I check every single cost, as you'll see in my Excel sheet, I'm like exhaustively checking everything. If the numbers are comparable, I don't go in and change them. If the numbers are not supported by UCR data, then I will make adjustments. And there were very, very few of them. However many footnotes would be, either I made them higher or lower, depending on what the case may be.
Okay. Well, you'd agree that Kathy compiled expenses from local providers in Georgia?
I could not, I'd have to refresh how she did it. I know she didn't use UCR, you know, methodology.
Okay. So in footnotes 8 through 12, you rely on the 75th percentile of the usual, customary, and reasonable rates by context for health. Is that
Right. And that's,
what,
yeah, sorry.
what is context for health?
Pretty much the mainstay. There's that, and then there's fairhealth.com, and it's a collection of UCR rates with GeoZip that allows you to put in codes, you know, the CPT codes, and arrive at, I use the 75th percentile. That was what my training was, to come up with the UCR rates. You know, you can call any provider that you want and say, what do you charge? The evidence-based methodology would be to use actual collated data. Or reimbursables. You know, if she's planning on going to a neurologist, the neurologist charges $7,000, the reimbursed rate is $20. I would do a UCR and say, well, that's ridiculous. It's not going to be $20. It's not going to be $9,000. And I would go in and do a UCR analysis.
Have you ever testified as a billing expert?
Yes, as a life care planner, I am trained and certified, and a physician, no less, to derive CPT codes and come up with costing. I mean, that's part of our training and certification in life care planning.
Okay. Context for Health is not an actual healthcare provider, correct?
It's a massive, widely used database. I really like it from a methodology perspective. That, again, you don't take, you know, Dr. Joe, Dr. Mary, Dr. Susie on the street. You use evidence-based data of the actual GeoZip for usual, customary, and reasonable rates. I've had ridiculous experiences seeing, you know, hi, we called Mary Sue down the street and she said blah blah blah, and then you see the reimbursable and do the UCR and the numbers are totally different. So that's not the methodology I employ. It might be what a nurse employs, but as an epidemiologist, physician, and life care planner, that's not my way of doing it.
You understand that in Georgia, an injured party is entitled to recover the amount charged versus the reimbursed rate. Is that fair? You know?
I use UCR data. I could not testify as to Georgia law.
Mm-hmm. So backing up, my question was, context for health is not an actual healthcare provider, correct?
It is an evidence-based, huge database that utilizes GeoZip data to come up with usual, customary, and reasonable rates. It's not a doctor's
Not
office.
my question.
It's not a doctor's office, correct?
Context for Health provides no medical care to anyone, correct?
No.
What market does Context for Health serve?
Physicians in their offices to come up with what UCR, I mean, there's other databases as well. I mean, I could only begin to think of the robust, health economics, public health, strategy planning for implementing prevention programs and what they may cost. I think it's a fabulous resource for research, for prevention. That's really the mainstay of public health and health economics.
Does Context for Health have the ability to require actual healthcare providers to lower their rates?
What? I don't know what you mean.
Can Context for Health make a healthcare provider charge less?
They're not a regulatory agency. They're not Medicaid or Medicare setting fixed rates, if that's what you're calling. They're not an insurance, it's what you're referring to. They're not an insurance company doing negotiated rates for, is that what you're referring to? They're data source, a data house.
They can't make anyone do anything. They can't make a healthcare provider reduce their rates.
Correct. I'm just going to take a little bite of this.
Sure.
Thing. Sorry. I don't think any of us can make anybody charge what they want to. It's what they get, what the reimbursed is.
Do you know how Context for Health collects information on usual, customary, and reasonable rates?
I would love to answer that in broad strokes, but I can provide you with their methodology and all the data reports behind that. I would be remiss to just do it off the top of my head.
Sure. So my question is, do you know? Do you know how Context for Health collects information on usual, customary, and reasonable rates?
If I could refresh my recollection and review the methodology and take a break for a moment, I could answer that with more, a more responsible response. Is that okay?
As we sit here today, right now, do you know how Context for Health collects information on usual, customary, and reasonable rates?
I would rather refresh my recollection and read through the methodology before I answer an important question with a broad stroke response.
So without reviewing the methodology and learning what it is, you do not know how Context for Health collects information on usual, customary, and reasonable rates. Is that fair?
I'm gonna object to the form, and that's not what she testified to.
Yeah, respectfully, I take great issue with you using the word learning as if I have to learn, insinuating that somebody with 20 blah blah plus years experience has to learn. I asked to refresh my recollection so that I could give you a response and even supply you with their methodology, which I'm happy to do.
Mm-hmm. As we sit here today, right now, you cannot provide me that methodology though.
I can, if you give me a moment, I can read it, send it to you. I'm not going to give you a broad stroke response without refreshing and reviewing the data behind it. It's not my way of practicing.
So without refreshing your recollection, you cannot tell me what the methodology for Context for Health is. Is that correct?
I
I'm
think
gonna object to the form, and it mischaracterizes what she said, but you can answer.
it's same answer.
Okay. Well, I have a few more questions and then we can take a break and you can refresh your recollection.
Sure.
Why did you choose the 75th percentile?
That's what my training and experience was. Some use the 50th percentile. I can reanalyze it in any way you want, and put, the beautiful thing about how the system works is that it gives you a printout of the code and all the different percentiles in that GeoZip. So for any date, in fact, if you wanted to push it back dates years ago and find out what it was then.
What are the various percentiles that you can choose from?
They just redid the program used to have to type in each percentile and then write down what it was and make a chart. They now print out, it might start at 20, 25, it might go up to 80. I honestly would have to just take a peek and refresh, but it breaks it down by, I don't know, 7, 8 different parameters on a chart per code.
And how do the percentiles work? So if you're at 50 percentile, that's going to be the median price.
Yeah, it would be that under that number, 50% of providers and reimbursements are under that, and 50% would be over that.
So the data is focused on what is reimbursed.
It is usual, customary, reasonable rates.
For reimbursements, not what doctors' offices are charging.
Again, I would like to fully refresh.
What is a percentile?
What do you mean, what a percentile?
What do they mean when they say percentile?
So if you have 100%, what do you mean? What's a percentile?
What's the 75th percentile mean?
That 25% of providers would be above that amount.
Do you agree?
Wait, could I take a bathroom break for a moment?
Yeah, of course.
All right. Is it a good time? Like, you want to finish this line of questions, or?
So I just have 3 more questions and then we can take a break now. It's really up to you.
It's a bathroom break.
Let's just go to the bathroom.
Okay. All right. Thank you so much.
Well, first, let me ask, did you have a conversation with Miss Diddle during that break?
No, I just went to the bathroom.
Okay. What is the difference between percentile and percentages?
So breaking it down is a kind of a simple analogy. If you have a class that took a test, okay, and you got 70 out of 100 correct on the test, you'd have 70% answers correctly. That doesn't mean that that's the 70th percentile of performance of the class. It would mean if it was the percentile, 70th percentile, that 30% of people did better and the rest had that or below.
Okay. And so explain one more time to me, what does the 75th percentile mean in the context of UCR?
So again, UCR is the charged rates as defined by CMS, the Center for Medicaid Services. And that would be what 30% of the charges as collated through whatever, UCR isn't just done through Context for Health. It's broad stroke, huge billions and billions of data points. And this is not like some a new app that's out there. This has been around forever. So that 30% of providers or bill or charges would be above, and 70 or below, you could use the benchmark. Some people use the 50% benchmark. In fact, many quote defense life care plans will go down. That was my training.
Okay.
And just, you know, and I have it up here, and I'm happy to screen share if you want, that according to CMS, the definition of UCR, the amount paid for a medical service in a geographic area based on what providers in the area usually charge for the same or similar medical service. You know, I have to make sure that I can quote release this document because it might be part of my, you know, I'll get this to you if I'm allowed to, but I can read from it, and I hope on my honor, you know, I'm not like reading crazy.
Let's do this. So I have to ask a question before you can answer it. Will you please share your screen?
Well, that's what I want to, but when you license software, it might be that I'm not able to give out that, you know, software. So I just would want to make sure I can, because you have to, you know, if you're like on Lexis, I don't know if you're allowed to give me information from it. So I want to be conscious. I just literally pulled it up because I had it in a folder, but I think I am remiss in just thinking I can screen share or share the file. I apologize.
Well, I'm going to mark whatever the document that you're looking at right now is 680. And
Okay.
we can figure out the logistics of including that in the record at a later point.
It's not it's not, I'm sure we can get it.
So my question, now that you've had the opportunity to review the methodology, is do you know how Context for Health collects information on usual, customary, and reasonable rates?
Well, again, I didn't refresh my methodology. I pulled it up, hoping I can. I went to the toilet. So I need some time. I would like to give you a more accurate response than just saying they like gather a gajillion data points, as I said before, from providers in the GeoZip, and, you know, allocate the data to come up with what the percentiles are. But I think you're looking for a really granular statistical answer, and I do have to go back and see their exact methodology, what regressions, they like, whatever the nerd level is. I'd have to go back.
So you can't give me the nerd level explanation.
I'm gonna give you what a reasonable and appropriate answer would be. The data is collected from, I would say, billions of of charges. I keep saying reimbursed within GeoZips for all of the CPT codes or similar procedures, and then statistically analyzed and input into this database. The nuances, and this database is used all over the place. You could subscribe to it yourself and plug the numbers in. It's not some, you know, secret potion. I'm surprised you haven't heard of it before.
I have.
Oh, okay. Thank you. I was sitting here like, do you really do this work and not know this stuff? Okay, good.
I just want to know if you do. So the date.
Tricky man. I'm sitting here like, did this guy, like, what the heck? How could he never have heard this? All right, good.
The data that's collected from billions of GeoZips, is it charges or the amount that's reimbursed?
It is charges. That's UCR. UCR, again, is the amount paid for a geographical service on what the providers in the area usually charge for the same or similar medical service.
Okay. So, where did that footnote go? So, I'm not sharing the screen right now, but do you saw page 45 of your recommendations pulled up?
No, I don't see it.
No, he's not sharing. Do you?
Oh,
have it?
I'm not sharing it.
Oh, okay. 45?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So the first footnote that references context for health is footnote 8, and it's the physiatrist at $207.27 per visit.
Yeah.
Do you have any document in your file that shows that?
No, it's just from the UCR and typically how, just from context for health, that typically how that works is if you're going to a doctor once per year, the codes and the time you spend with the doctor are, quote, like higher level. If you're going 4 times per year, they're more routine visits. They know the patient, they're not obtaining the history. And that was a 4 visit per year. So the code that I used was the 90837. I don't know what, I don't, as you said before, Ms. Smith, Greg Smith.
Mhm.
I don't remember how she did her life care plan. But that is just the proper code that I believe was used, and just what I got when I did it. So if there's 1 visit per year versus, is similarly the GI doctor, which I actually should have caught, that might need another sourcing as well, but whatever. Truthfully, they're round about the same. I almost shouldn't have quibbled with it as much as I did, but I happened to catch that one.
Mm. So where are you looking? Sorry.
Where am I looking?
Yeah, I missed what you said.
What I said was,
gastroenterologist.
in retrospect, honestly, it's not, I'll probably learn for the next time. 225 sounds reasonable. What did she have for physiatrist? That's what I should look at. I want to see why I changed it. Was it higher than 225? It wouldn't necessarily be my style. Oh, I know, she had 497.50. So that really jumped out at me. That's why I did the UCR.
Mm.
So the rest of them, 225, whatever, it's full of, fine. But that number jumped out at me. I didn't see any coding connected to it. So I did what I would consider an independent analysis. And if different codes were used and that's the UCR and I have that information, I'm happy to, take a look at it.
Okay. Do you agree that a quote from an actual medical provider would be more accurate as to what Kendall Thomas or her family would have to pay for medical treatment than a quote from Context for Health?
I've
And
objected before, but you can answer.
I can say with such confidence that the way the medical systems are set up today, with the conglomeration of hospitals and groups buying groups and insurance companies, that answer is unequivocal. That answer is no. And until I learned about life care planning and all this costing and databases, which is a learning curve, it's different. Doctors, I did not know up until 7 years ago much of what I have been exposed to in terms of this work. It has certainly enhanced my work as a physician, as a researcher, in planning statewide programs in healthcare and models and all that. So the answer is no.
Okay. Do you agree that if Kendall gets the care outlined in your recommendations and it costs more than the number from Context for Health, she'll have to pay the amount charged?
I wouldn't even know how to answer. I don't even know how to answer that.
What part of it don't you know how to answer?
It's the UCR. What are they going to arrest her for not paying the UCR? I don't understand what you mean.
So if Kendall let's use this specific example.
Let's just, I am
Let him
ignorant.
re-ask the question.
Yeah.
So you said you have a physiatrist visit at $207.27.
Okay.
And then you said that we'll just use the number 400 for Kathy's plan. I don't know if that's accurate or not. But if Kendall goes to a physiatrist, the physiatrist that she's been visiting, and he or she chooses to charge her $400, she'll have to pay $400, not the $207. Is that fair?
You'd have to bring that physiatrist in and see if they have the nerve to answer that question. I couldn't imagine that. I'm working with evidence-based data, UCR numbers, the codes that I was not provided with in Ms. Smith's plan. So I don't know exactly where she's coming up. Maybe she's using a different code. But you'd have to ask that doctor if they had the nerve to do that. I certainly wouldn't.
All right. So you reviewed Kathy Gragg-Smith's life care plan as part of your work on this case, correct?
I did.
And on pages 37 through 42 of your report, you comment on Miss Gragg-Smith's life care plan, correct?
Yes.
Would it be fair to say that there's a good amount of Kathy's plan that you agree with?
Yeah, I do.
Okay. So I want to go through a few of these things. So let's see. On page 40, we're looking at projected evaluations. You agree that Kendall will need an evaluation by an assistive technology specialist / speech
Wait,
therapist.
40 on the numerated or 40 on the PDF?
I'm sorry, 37 on the report, 40 on the PDF.
I
understand how that was confusing.
Yeah, that's okay. Okay, hit it.
All right, so you agree that Kendall Thomas will need an evaluation by an assistive technology specialist / speech therapist every 5 years for the rest of Kendall's life.
Yeah, yes, absolutely. I think that'd be great.
And you agree that Kendall will need 2 to 4 evaluations each year by a gastroenterologist for the rest of her life.
Yes.
Then, so in the third bullet point, in response to Ms. Gragg-Smith's hematologist recommendation, you say, quote, if post-DVT monitoring is needed at this point, studies can be performed by the pediatrician, end quote.
Yeah, it is at this point, this far out, and I believe Dr. Thomas reiterated this, that she's far out enough from the DVT and they did the workup. I don't think there's heme needs for follow-up long-term. If I'm remiss, I certainly would correct that. That was just as a physician input. I believe Dr. Thomas shared that as well.
Okay. Well, what happens once Kendall ages out of seeing a pediatrician?
She sees her adult doctor.
And
I
then,
should have written her. These are so they're just typical blood studies that if there's concern for a DVT, first of all, you have to see if the patient's in a hypercoagulable state and do certain blood testing, but then also do imaging, ultrasound. The monitoring piece, the hematologist isn't necessarily going to be doing. The reason she's seeing the hematologist is to see if there's an underlying causation, behind that would lead to future risk. My sense of it is when kids or adults are critically ill to the degree that she merely because of her condition is prone to and immobility, prone to hypercoagulable effects and a DVT and all that. So I shouldn't use the word pediatrician, but frankly, it probably is the right word because she's still in the umbrella of, you know, post-event recovery. And as that, if she's not identified as an underlying disorder that would give her predisposition to DVT, she won't have to keep going back to the hematologist. If the hematologist said differently, I would defer to them.
Okay. Well, is it possible that Kendall might need to see a hematologist 1 to 2 times each year as an adult?
I wouldn't think so, based on my clinical experience, but again, I would defer. If the treating provider said something different than Dr. Thomas said, her mom, and the records, at least as I interpret them, reflect, I certainly think that would be appropriate.
Okay. Next, so you agree that Kendall will need 1 to 2 home accessibility evaluations throughout her life?
Yes.
And you agree that Kendall will need 1 to 2 neurologist evaluations each year for the rest of her life?
Yes.
To the next one, neuropsychologist. So in response to Kathy's recommendation for 3 to 4 psychological evaluations, you wrote, quote, Kendall will continue to be evaluated through her district. An allocation of 1 additional session is reasonable, end quote. And so my first question about that is, when you say district, do you mean the school district?
Yeah, so she, as you know, she's getting a really well done IEP. I mean, that was beautiful. It's like, I would say, a model, absolutely wonderful IEP. She's getting excellent services. Frankly, I would defer to her treating neurologist first. I found although I don't even know if I've seen her report or not. I have to tell you, I don't know if I've seen, oh yeah, I did see Dr. Gillis, right, report. I didn't pay attention to whether she put in neuropsych or not, but I would actually defer to what she said. She was like incredible. But Kendall is going to reach a place, if she has not already, where it's not going to be necessary to continue to do that.
Well, what happens once Kendall graduates and is no longer, or if she graduates and is no longer receiving care through the school district?
Remember, she is not going to be getting better. So what I meant was, if we do 1 more now and it's this soon out, and it could give some, you know, input for therapy or anything of the sort, it would be now. It wouldn't be when she's an adult.
Well, is it possible that as an adult, Kendall might need to see a neuropsychologist at any point throughout the rest of her life?
I just want to make sure you know what a neuropsychologist, not a psychologist, but neuropsych testing, that's what they're talking about.
Is it possible?
Anyone, you could go to one tomorrow, or I could go to one tomorrow. I think that she's reached a trajectory where her further recovery is very unlikely. I think she is where she is. And to have her go through a very exhaustive and extensive battery of testing that will not have any reasonable probability to yield any changes, or any changes in input, it's just almost not fair to the young woman.
You agree that Kendall will need 1 to 2 evaluations with a neurosurgeon each year for the rest of her life?
Yes.
Do you agree that Kendall might need an occupational therapy evaluation each year for the rest of her life?
If I said it, yes. Wait, did I say that, or it's part of the IEP? Yeah. No, I have to tell you, I have a little gurgle in my stomach. Okay. Not because of the deposition. I'm just have a little stomach from the protein bar. Okay. Keep going, please.
Um. All right. You agree that Kendall will need 3 to 4 visits with a physiatrist throughout her life?
Yes, but not evaluations. That was they would be the shorter visits.
Do you know how much each visit is currently costing Kendall's family?
I would have to pull out billing rates and see what's being covered, and I don't know off the top of my head. You mean costing out of pocket?
Well, that's a good point. Let me ask it differently. Do you know how much each visit is being billed to Kendall's family?
I would have to I think I have, do I have the bills from that one? I'd really have to go back and see if I have the actual bills to see what's on there. I have bills from Metro Atlanta, Wellstar, Georgia Anesthesia, Quantum Radiology, and Scottish Rite. So you'd have to give me the bill, and then I can look at the codes, look at the insurance reimbursement, and then give you a better answer.
Okay. So let's flip to page 40 of the report.
Yeah,
And that's the actual page, not the PDF number.
yeah.
So-
Oh, you mean, oh, good. So you gave me 2 pages because I have stomachache. All right, thanks.
Page,
We're
40.
on- The top is respiratory needs, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, I want to focus on the bottom. So you agreed that Kendall will need around the clock care for the rest of her life, meaning 24 hours a day.
Whether it be her family or provider, it is my opinion that someone should be in earshot of her, meaning they don't have to stand over her bed, all the time. And at school, it sounds like she has a lovely paraprofessional who's working out great. But somebody should be around at least.
So you agree that Kendall will need around the clock care for the rest of her life?
Yes.
Why do you disagree with Kathy Greg Smith's allotment of $50 an hour?
Because, well, let's talk first about school. She has paraprofessional care at school allocated in her IEP. It's not like a nurse stands over her. She also has during school hours, and her family really embrace that. And she can keep attending school until she's 21.
Mm-hmm.
That care isn't like that's certainly shouldn't be allocated. The level of care being $50 per hour, 24 hours a day. As I explain, I hope in a clear way, that she needs, one could truly say that she just needs in essence at night, in effect, I don't want to use this word in any disrespectful way, but just a sitter, someone to kind of be there and just be around for the general things. I put a home health aide in. But she's sleeping and she doesn't need feeds at night. So she, the nighttime care does not have to be skilled. The daytime care, I would like it to be seen as an LPN, the funding, the allocation there for an LPN, because although the sister, the siblings know how to do the G-tube feeds, the mother does, they're not always going to be around. And the feeds, in my personal opinion, professional opinion, although many life care planners or people who might do a quote defense review would say anybody could do G-tube if they're self-hire. I'd like to see it be somebody with that level of training.
On the next page, option 2, brain injury facility care. So we spent some time talking about this, so I'm not gonna get into this too much, but how did you arrive at the total cost being under $200,000 a year?
What do you mean?
You say the total cost per year would be under $200,000 before the deduction of consumption costs.
Just point me what you're talking about.
It's in that paragraph under option 2.
Oh, well, first of all, I do have experience with Annandale on the Dupree case. A lot. So meaning consumption costs would mean individuals have to have pre-existing living expenses anyway. And what my recollection, I'd have to look at her report, was she did bring up Annandale, but I might be mistaken. I'd have to look. I don't know if that was my insertion or not.
Mhm.
Did she? Can you just remind me if she brought it up or
I honestly don't recall.
okay. So there would be she's considering a place like she's on a ventilator and a completely different kind of facility that Kendall may belong in. So if she's at an Annandale, and if you go on the Annandale website and look at the different types of setups that she had, she couldn't do the independent living. She'd really have to be in effect in a skilled nursing facility, area there with some additional LPN care. My experience, and on at least to the best of my recollection, is that the cost ends up being about under $200,000.
Why did you deduct consumption costs?
So if you have to live anyway, so if you put in $6,000 a month for quote rent, however, I don't know, it's not necessarily a palatable concept, but you need consumption costs deducted from living expenses, from automobile expenses, because you otherwise would have needed those absent the proposed deviation. So you wouldn't need a wheelchair, but you would need to live. So that component of this would be done by an economist.
Do you have any idea whether Georgia law calls for the deduction of consumption costs?
I do not.
Okay. Are you going to issue, or are you going to give any opinions based on consumption costs at trial?
Yeah, that would be an economist ballpark. And frankly, I could have just said, I disagree. But I just wanted to, comment a little bit more on that. I also see another typo for my notes. Further to incorrect should be in italics. That's my commentary.
Okay. All right, flipping to page 42.
Yeah. I need to just use the bathroom real quick again.
Yeah, that's fine.
Literally 1 second. I'm so sorry. I'm sorry. You there?
Yep, we're there. It's okay.
Sorry.
That's okay. I'll come right back.
Stomach ache.
It's okay.
I literally cannot eat protein bars. I never do. And I just didn't eat breakfast because I was rushing up here.
I know, I'm sorry.
I'm not saying it for that reason. I just want to tell you, if I start to have major stomach problems. You think he's almost done?
I honestly don't know.
Yeah. All right. Whatever.
Two sets of twins?
2 sets of twins. Yeah.
So you have 4, or do you have more other than that?
Oh.
Yeah. Are you kidding me? Yeah. We have, our girls are just finished their sophomore year in college. And our boys are juniors in high school, in the, finishing up, in the midst, we're going through that college thing again.
Yeah.
So, yeah. How about you?
I have a big brown dog.
Ah,
And now a little brown dog because we inherited it from my elderly in-laws.
we have 3 dogs, and they're a big part of why we're doing construction to build. I'm building a soundproof room in the basement, a full on musician soundproof room for these. It's become untenable with working, from home versus the hospital, whatever. Do you have kids, Matt?
No, I've fur children. Like
Yeah.
myself.
Yeah, so you guys can handle all the barking. All right. I'm ready to go. Sorry about that. I have like a really unpleasant gurgle at my stomach from the protein bar. I'm sorry.
No worries. All right. Are we back on the record?
How much longer do you think we will be?
Oh, like 3 or 4 hours.
Okay.
I'm just kidding.
Oh, all right. What do you think? I'm trying to decide if I want to really go to the bathroom or not. Do you think within half hour or so, or?
Maybe.
Okay. All right, let's go. It's coming.
All right. Like I said, if you need a break at any point, just let me know.
No. I want to just keep going. I'm getting that, like, I'm going to be sick feeling. Okay.
All right. So we're on page 42.
Okay.
All right. We're at the top. We talked about this a little bit, but Kathy's plan called for 1 to 2 housing modifications and allotted $101,000 and some change per modification. You agree that she did that?
I do. First of all, just let her know it's 109,000 now. That was the bumped up number. But the family had no plans to move, wants to stay there long term. So I did not include that in the allocation. If they had told me we want a new house and this isn't working for us, it would have been 109,000 with a snap of a finger.
So you wrote, quote, "The house is modified. There are no plans for the family to move, and the family wishes that Kendall remain in the residence for the remainder of her life," end quote.
Yes.
And then we discussed the ramps. You're going to add that into your plan.
Well, if I do an addendum, I will, but I don't even know. Whatever. If I'm doing that, I certainly will.
I assume you'd have to do some research for the cost of that, but do you have any?
I haven't seen their house. 10,000. Yeah, I don't know. I have to take a look.
Do you agree that it's possible that the Thomas family might need to further modify their house to make it more accessible for Kendall?
They didn't tell me there were any reasons to or needs to. I asked.
Is it possible?
Well, anything could happen. I am absolutely not opposed to looking at additional information or hearing something differently that I might not have understood. I'm just going by the information that I had.
Okay. And then so I want to, it's same page, but kind of shift down to the surgical intervention
Right.
Category. Now, from looking at your plan, my understanding is that you did not include any of these. Is that fair?
Correct.
Okay. So the first one, Kathy's plan called for an Achilles tendon lengthening surgery. Can you just tell me what's that procedure for?
I would defer to her treating orthopedist to describe how that was done and how the decision would be made to do it. You know what the Achilles tendon is. It's basically releasing the Achilles tendon to, afford her more flexibility. That was not in at least what I believe I reviewed, something in the works, nothing Dr. Thomas or Mr. Thomas talked about, not planned. I would defer to her treating orthopedist, and if but also inherent in these possible things that does not achieve what would belong in a life care plan.
Okay. And so then you wrote exactly what you just said, pretty much, quote, "This is a possibility, not a probability. There are no plans for this."
As far as I know, correct.
But you do agree that it is a possibility.
I'm not going to opine on that because I would defer to the orthopedist. Maybe Dr. Gillis has, some commentary on that, but I'm not going to opine on that. The baclofen pump.
Well, hold on just a second.
Sorry.
So, but you did write that it is a possibility on your report.
Well,
right?
what I'm saying is it's a possibility if her treating provider does it, determines that she needs it and she'll benefit from it, and the family wants to take the risk for sedation, that's my big concern with her. And there's a risk benefit ratio here, that they go ahead with it. That's, give me that information and I'll price it out.
Mm-hmm. So you simply agree that it is a possibility. Yeah. But your plan did not include it. Why not?
Again, there are no plans for it. It hadn't been recommended by a provider. And when I asked Dr. Thomas about it, it wasn't anything. I mean, at least my recollection was she looked at me a little perplexed.
Okay.
Remember, I went through all these with the family.
Mm-hmm. All right. So then to the baclofen pump, that's a pump that administers medicine to help with spasticity, right?
Yeah, but she has a shunt.
Mm-hmm. So just explain to me why she doesn't need a baclofen pump or won't need one.
Well, I would definitely defer to the treating neurosurgeon. I have yet to see shunt and baclofen pump come in my experience in the same patient. It could be, in my training and experience and understanding, a contraindication. So that's where I would leave it.
So what led you to write that it is a remote possibility?
It's something that the family didn't discuss. I would be out of turn to speak as a neurosurgeon and would defer to neurosurgeon or Dr. Gillis, even if she's comfortable. But I don't think any doctor's putting that in with the shunt.
Okay. And you're not a neurosurgeon, correct?
I am not.
Mm. And but it is a possibility that Kendall will have.
If it was my child, I wouldn't do it. But I guess I doubt Dr. Thomas would do it either. But again, if I'm remiss in different literature than I was trained on, or my experience with patients, my understanding is it's not a friendly risk benefit ratio with a shunt.
What's a toe release?
I couldn't say exactly what exactly she meant by that, but my assumption would be with a significant contracture to release tendons and ligaments to give it more, more ability to be flexed. She didn't, the discomfort per se was not in that area as per Dr. Thomas, nor do I see that recommended at this time. Same with the wrist tendon lengthening. These are big surgeries.
Mm-hmm. So but we'll just go in with both of them. You said same comment above, and there are multiple comments above.
Sorry, possibility, not probability. All the surgical interventions, based on the information I have at this time, open to reevaluating if I am remiss in having missed something or get additional information, are possibilities, not probabilities.
How often are brain shunts revised or replaced?
I don't know an exact number of years. My experience has been many of them perform well. Hers was performing well. It's relatively new. I don't have an average day for revision. I do recall having a discussion with somebody or reading somewhere that she didn't need it replaced to a reasonable probability. If she did, it's right in there.
Who do you think, or do you know whether it was a discussion or?
I don't even know if it's this case or another case. That's what I'm saying. I would say that it's right now. There have been no issues with her shunt. Could I say that there might need to be an unfortunate replacement surgery? Perhaps. And if her treating physician said it's very likely it's going to be within the next blank years, it would be right in there.
Okay. Can you see plaintiff's exhibit 679?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I want to go through these factors with you and ask you to based on your observations and review of the medical records, to kind of go through these and determine what you have seen present with Kendall, and then ask for an assignment of a number between 1 and 10.
I'm not going to do this. I would want to look at it, think about it, review evidence-based data, how I would come up with some arbitrary number. I'm not doing this. It would be
Okay.
so irresponsible of me.
Well, then let's just go through and check the ones that you've noticed. Is there an interference with Kendall's normal living?
I'm not giving a number, so that's what
yeah, no number.
that would be kind of a
So
little silly.
has there
so-
been an interference? Oh, go ahead.
Yes, interference with normal living, yes. Do I know that Kendall perceives enjoyment of life from her perspective based on what her mother has said? She does understand that she's different than other kids, and then I would put the checkbox. Do I know that to a reasonable degree of medical certainty? I do not know that Kendall is not a happy girl. So I would say, based on mom, yes. Based on, we don't live inside of Kendall's mind. She certainly appears loved, nurtured. She obviously is not able to cognitively, be where she was before. I'm going to give it a check mark with that caveat.
Okay.
Definitely loss of capacity to earn money. As a vocational rehab counselor certified in that, she cannot work. And that takes a lot for me to say. Yes, impairment of bodily health and vigor. I'm not in a position to answer if she has fear, shock. I can't answer that.
Okay.
Actual pain, and I'm going to say just clearly that the reason I'm saying that is I am not living inside of Kendall's mind, and I'm not dismissing in any way what she or her family have gone through. So I do not mean that with any disrespect. Yes, pain and suffering in the past and future for her and her family. I can't comment to her mental anguish. I can speak from evidence-based, yep, for her family and the extent which she would limit activities as well. So I just want to clarify, because I don't want it to be mischaracterized if you take a subset, that I am by no way minimizing the family's fear or extent of injury, shock of impact, mental anguish in past, mental anguish in the future. I'm speaking to what I can attest to and testify to a reasonable degree of medical certainty about Kendall's perception.
Okay,
For
that's fair.
example, shock of impact. Her mom said she doesn't remember anything about it. That's what I'm getting at.
Okay, that's fair. So do you agree with this document as it's been notated?
Yes, I do. I do. However, you need to write as long as the explanations as to this simplistic document are explained when presenting or representing the opinions that you're saying I set forth.
How's that? Keep it short.
I'd like to have what I said, but at least it's in the depot and then you don't have to keep typing. You can go on.
Okay. All right, I'll save this. And so this document as completed will be plaintiff's exhibit 679. I think I saved it. Let me do a screenshot just to make sure. All right. How do I get out of this? All right. So would you agree that your report, sorry.
Oh,
Would you-
that was a lousy view of me. Okay, yeah, I froze for a minute there. All
Would
right.
you agree that your report states all of your opinions?
All that I'm saying at this time. I don't know that you might ask me something else or additional things might come up as the case moves along, but yes.
Okay. Have you added any new opinions since the life care plan dated May 3? And I'll write other than adding the cost for the ramp.
I don't believe so. I don't believe so.
Have we discussed all of the opinions that you intend to offer at trial?
Yeah, I think you did a really good job.
Thank
If
you.
that's what you're looking for. I know that you're fishing for compliments.
And then as a formality, I already know this, but we need it in the record. Where do you live?
466 Bedford Road in Armonk, New York, 10504.
Okay. And as promised, I will not ask where you are. Have you had any conversations with Dr. Chabelle about this case?
No. Wait 1 second. Can you get my cell phone from downstairs? No, I don't think I ever talked to the guy on the phone before. I don't think so.
Have you exchanged any written correspondence, whether it be letter, email, text message, carrier pigeon?
No. The
Okay.
only time I've ever, I think, directly spoken to him is one time we were testifying on the same case, but then it settled and I was like, oh, do you want to meet or something? That was like a year ago. I don't even know. I don't have a relationship with him.
Okay.
I don't even know what he looks like.
And then we're just about done. I want to go through want to go through that Excel spreadsheet real quick with you.
Sure.
We will be done. You'll bear with me just for a second. All right, so I'm gonna share screen 2 with you. Can you see everything on my screen?
Yeah, just wanna, yes, I can.
Thomas share file.
Yeah.
And then do you, it looks like it was last modified on May 8th. Is that the last time that you added or took anything out of this folder?
Well, modified means that when did what's today's date? I don't even know.
Today's the 11th.
Whenever I sent it would be when it was modified. That just means that the files were like shared. I think that's what that means.
Okay. And so I'm going to do mark this, everything in this folder. The link is composite exhibit A to the deposition. Does this file include everything that you've considered, relied upon, or created in connection with this case?
Yeah, give me a second, because something doesn't make sense here. Let me just go on here, because it doesn't look like a share file. It looks like, yeah. It's correct. Yeah. When it says not reviewed on the tag, it just means at the time of my, wait. IME video received. Yeah, it means before I issued my, whatever, they're reviewed, but I just never took the tag off. It must have been like before I issued my report.
Okay. And then,
Yeah.
so here we have there's this Excel spreadsheet document titled Thomas PLCP and JEN costing sheet.
Yeah.
Is this have you only created one Excel spreadsheet?
So there's 4 inside in it. So if you open it up, oof, I might be sick soon. I'm really not feeling well. Can you open it up on your,
take a break?
I don't know. Let's just keep going.
Hold on, if I can jump in, Matt, I noticed the same thing when we were on the last break. Mine opens up almost as a PDF of the Excel. So I can follow up with Dr. Cantor's office and get the actual Excel table, because that's exactly what I have. I don't have the Excel table.
Because you didn't download it. So if you download it,
So
then
there's not an option.
You're looking at a preview of it. Go to the upper right hand corner to those 3 dots and click.
Yeah, it doesn't give us the option, Dr. Cantor. I had the same issue.
Oh, shoot. All right.
And I didn't realize that until we were in the deposition.
Can you move back one file? Let me see if I can help you. Go back. Oh my God.
This is the document, like this is the screen that I'm taken to when I click the link.
Yeah, I've never had the link go. No offense, I'm not saying this to Ms. Diddle, but I've never had the link and then go to the attorney. It's the files get downloaded and sent. So I've never been in this situation. Because, well, whatever, we have what we have. We have to.
I will get it to you, Matt, though.
Okay. Well, I'm going
to explain exactly what that is, and I will do no holds barred. I'm not going to lie to you or anything. There's Ms. Greg Smith's life care plan reproduced in that format, so I can check all the costs, and that's the 2 tabs. Then the next tab is my life care plan, simply as you see it. And the 4th tab is the chart at the end with some calculations programmed in.
So this is the 4th.
Yeah. Yeah, and there's all kinds of formulas embedded in that.
Okay, so page 36 of the 37-page document begins the 4th tab.
Well, yeah.
And
Rough
then,
about- But remember, there's hidden cells, quote, hidden. All that means is you take like 100 cells, and so you don't have to print them all. You just shrink it, but it's still in the document.
okay, and then so then the Cantor plan, which begins on page 31 of 37, is the 3rd tab.
It should be, yeah. I've never seen it like this, but yeah, it should be.
And then the first 2 tabs are Kathy's at home.
Option A, option B, yeah.
Yeah. Understood. Okay, good. So on
Like
Kathy's-
literally, like feeling like I might throw up. Are we almost done? I'm so sorry.
we are very close to being done.
Okay.
Do you need a break?
No, I just want to finish. I'm not exaggerating. I truly feel like I puke.
So did you make any changes to Kathy's plan, or was this just a direct transcription?
Direct transcription, so I can totally direct transcription. That's just the way I do it.
Okay, and then what are the highlighted? What's the significance of the highlighted?
I
field?
wanted to check. I might have had, they're the things that essentially I critiqued on, per se.
Okay. And so just to be clear, so we're on page 14, which is the total cost section for Kathy's at-home plan. You disagree with the total cost of $34 million.
Well, for reasons that we've talked about, yes.
Okay.
And the same with the facility, yeah.
Okay. All right, so now we're on the Cantor plan. And up at the top, it says life expectancy of 81 generated using CDC table.
Okay. Sorry about that.
That's fine. So you used the CDC table that we looked at earlier in the deposition to project the life expectancy to 80.
No, that's just that's from her thing on top.
This has nothing to do. It's on a different tab.
Right. It's from her. I can't even explain it. It's just the top of it. It's what she had. It's how the calculation for hers came out. It's before Cantor plan.
Okay, so the life expectancy of 81 using CDC table has nothing to do with the Cantor plan.
Correct.
Okay. So there's this yellow highlighted field that says Jen, some things say per year and some don't. Then I think it should be, but it says hood it be consist net. Who wrote that in there?
Me, I talked to myself.
Okay.
See, if you look at my life, it's like Jen do this, Jen do that. Yeah. Give me a second.
And then here we have the annual costs from ages 16 to 18, meaning that these are per year costs.
Yeah.
From the age of Kendall's age of 16.
Between that age bracket. Yep.
And down here we have annual costs ages 18.
Right. So that would be what it costs for the rest of her life.
And then down here in your table, it says total annual cost.
If she were to live until 81, my total cost would be 18.
Okay. And so is this the plan that you intend to
That's
present
taking
at
that
trial?
out and multiplying it by full life expectancy. Exactly.
Mhm. And so at trial, you will present all of the options up to 81.
Well, yeah, I mean, this is free for whatever you want to do with it. That is just how it would be extrapolated and how I programmed the following page.
Okay, so you did use the CDC guideline in your table.
No, that's just embedded in how the spreadsheet is that I have programmed. As you'll see, it takes her life expectancy to see what the total cost would be in mine.
Okay.
I am, that like sweaty feeling like you're gonna puke. I'm like, are we like really almost done? Whew.
I think so. I want to
Okay.
make sure, I need to review some emails that were sent to me before while the deposition started. So I'm gonna, need a couple minutes. If you need to take a break, then let's do that.
I
I'm
really
not
do.
gonna have any questions. There's only 4 real short emails, Matt. I'm sure you could scan them in 30 seconds.
Okay.
Okay. All right, guys. I promise I'll come talk to you again. I have to go. We good?
Let's give it a second.
Well, let me ask you while he's doing that. Do you want to read and sign? Or are you gonna waive?
I would like to read and sign.
Okay, so Jennifer can note that.